Chapter 515. I have a hunch that this path and the blood mist below are extremely dangerous. This didn't require a hunch at all. It was inevitable. Tang Sin didn't say anything. This terrain wasn't difficult for him, but no one knew what he would encounter on the way. Hulaina was right. Although Tang Sin knew that this girl was from the golden generation of the martial spirit palace, he didn't have any grudges with her. As a person who could distinguish between kindness and hatred, Tang Sin only had a deep hatred for the Pope. My name is Hulaina, a disciple of the martial spirit palace's Pope Bibidon. As if to gain their trust, Hulaina took the lead and said, I'm currently at level 59, and my martial soul is Demon Fox. Hearing this, Tang San was shocked. This girl was not only from the golden generation, but she was also a disciple of the Pope Bibidon. No wonder Father said that this girl was the strongest among the golden generation. So there was this reason. No wonder she was so strong. Tang Sin was silent for a moment. He didn't reject Hulaina's proposal and said slowly, My name is Tang Yin from the Heavenly Sect. I'm currently at level 55, and my martial soul is the Heavenly Hammer. He had been using the Heavenly Hammer as a combat weapon. Hulaina nodded slightly. She had already noticed the martial soul of this Azura king. Although the Heavenly Sect and the Martial Spirit Palace didn't get along, there was nothing to say at this time. Since they had decided to cooperate temporarily, there was no need to hide this information. After the two finished speaking, they looked straight at the white-clothed Grim Reaper. Wang Feng looked around, thought for a moment, and said, My name is Nicholas Wang Wu. Hulaina. Tang San. Nicholas Wang Wu? What kind of name is this? I'm from the extreme north, currently at level 57, and my martial soul is... Let me think. My martial soul is the sharp blade you saw. Wang Feng said casually. He just said the name. Anyway, he didn't have to pay taxes. Moreover, these two guys were also using aliases. Although the two felt that the name was weird, they didn't say much. However, the words extreme north still surprised them, especially Hulaina. She met Xing Xing in the outer circle of the extreme north. That was very dangerous. That place was extremely dangerous, and any soul cultivator who could walk out of that place was a first-rate powerhouse. Although Tang San had never been there, he had heard of it. Naturally, he was surprised. All right, it's settled then. Hulaina's expression darkened as she continued. You guys should know what rewards you'll get if you walk through Hell's Path, right? Tang Sin shook his head slightly. He was not sure. It was only because his father said that he had to take this path to hell that he did. Wang Feng didn't know much about it, but he didn't care. He had already completed his training in Massacre City, so he was here to check in. You don't know. Hulaina frowned and said, Didn't anyone tell you when you came in? Forget it, I'll tell you. Once we walk through Hell's Path, we will obtain a talent domain. You should at least know about talent domains, right? Tang San's eyes turned cold. The blue light that he had just used to resist the crimson light seemed to be a domain, and it was an innate domain of the Blue-Silver Emperor. His teacher had said a long time ago that domain skills were extremely rare and would usually only appear in the 9th soul skill of a titled Dalu, so might not even have it. And most of the innate domains came with a martial soul, not a soul skill, so he could use it. He didn't expect that the reward of Hell's Path would be a kind of innate domain. Wang Feng naturally knew about innate domains. His dark angel martial soul had one, and it would soon take shape. As for the reward of Hell's Path, Wang Feng didn't care much about it. The Massacre City we are in is shrouded by a huge domain. Hulaina continued. I suspect that this domain may be related to the abyss below the blood fog. The smell of blood in the air is very similar to the smell of Bloody Mary. You should have smelled it, right? Although I can't see the scene below the blood fog, I guess it must be an abyss made of countless blood. Tang Sin had also guessed this point. Or rather, he saw it. Using the purple demon eyes, he could see through the hazy blood fog. What was hidden was an incomparably huge blood pool. In the blood pool were those Bloody Marys. There was a faint roar coming from below. It was very strange. Seeing it, Tang Sin could naturally guess it. This blood pool was probably the root of the Massacre City, and also the source of the formation of the Massacre City's domain. One had to know that although the domain of the Massacre City was rumored to be left behind by a rank 100 powerhouse, it didn't have the support of a soul master. How could a domain always exist? A domain also needed soul power to activate, and the domain of the Massacre City obviously also needed special soul power to activate. And the source of the activation was human blood that was mixed with poison. The two of them had stayed in the Massacre City for more than 2 years, and they were not fools. Naturally, they had a guess in their hearts. Now, according to the terrain here, they could naturally analyze and guess. This hell's path is this small path, and also the only exit. Hulaina pointed to the small path ahead. It's best if the three of us can stay together. This way, we can move forward and also deal with special situations at the same time. This was also a form of trust. If one of them was attacked, and the other two didn't help, then the two of them would be greatly affected. Wang Feng frowned slightly and looked into the distance. With his senses, he could vaguely feel that this hell's path was probably not ordinary. The further they went, the more dangerous it was. Wang Feng wasn't afraid of the other three. As the protagonist of the original work, he should be able to turn danger into safety and walk through. But Hulaina might not be able to. At this moment, Hulaina suddenly took out various tools from her soul tool. Among these tools, there were ropes, long hooks, and so on. I prepared them in advance. This rope is very hard, made with heavenly silk soaked in congealed fat. It has both flexibility and toughness, and can withstand the weight of 50 people without breaking. Even sharp weapons can't cut it instantly. Hulaina pointed to the long hook. This hook can prevent sudden drops. Do you need it? Tang San shook his head. Although the preparation was good, he had the soaring god's claw and didn't need such things. But he was secretly shocked that Hulaina was so meticulous. She was so well prepared. As an enemy, this kind of person was very scary. He couldn't help but think of that battle. He had almost turned the tables on Hulaina. Wang Feng didn't really need it. All right, I'll use the rope then. Hulaina tied the rope around her slender waist and looked at the two of them. Who's in front? Or me? Me, Tangsen said slowly. He wasn't afraid of leaving his back to Hulaina because he had the 8 spider spears behind him. As long as he felt that something was wrong with Hulaina, he could instantly assassinate her. Hulaina nodded, then looked at Wang Feng and said, Wang Wu, what about you? I'll go last. Wang Feng took the rope and was about 2 meters away from Hulaina. Chapter 516. Then we'll have to trouble you. Hulaina glanced at Wang Feng with her beautiful eyes. It will be more dangerous later. Sensing the white-clothed Grim Reaper, Nicholas, and Wang Wu behind her, Hulaina felt a special sense of security for no reason. Maybe it was because the other party was very powerful. After discussing, the three began to step on the path. The path was very narrow, similar to the road in her previous life, but for the three, it was easy to move forward. And, with enough distance, they could maintain a good pace. Although Tang Sen was vigilant against both of them. As a guide, he could see far away with his purple demon eyes. As long as the other party didn't act recklessly, he would maintain a cooperative relationship. After all, Tang Sen also felt that this hell road was extremely dangerous. Wang Feng walked at the back and looked at Hulaina, who didn't look at the front. In fact, looking at Hulaina from behind, he could feel the perfect figure of the martial spirit Palace Saintess. Her moving arc was extremely tempting. It was easy to be distracted by just looking at it. As for Wang Feng, he didn't feel anything, because he had been using his mind to perceive the surroundings. Since entering this hell road, Wang Feng had an ominous premonition. The three maintained a slow pace. At this time, Hulaina suddenly turned her head, looked at Wang Feng, and suddenly asked, Wang Wu, your mask covers your eyes. How are you able to attack so accurately, as if you can see everything clearly? Hulaina could also use her mind to perceive the surroundings, but she could only do this. Why should I tell you? Hulaina. She choked and didn't know what to say. There was nothing wrong with the other party's answer. Why should he tell her? Then is there a special reason for you to wear a mask? Hulaina asked the question that she wanted to ask when they first met. So handsome. Hulaina choked again. Tang San in front also staggered and broke out in a cold sweat. Logically speaking, he wouldn't make such a mistake. The main reason was that the contrast between the white-clothed Grim Reaper's words was too strong. It had been like this since the first time they met 2 years ago. This Nicholas King V was obviously terrifyingly strong. He was like a cold-faced death god who rarely spoke. However, every sentence seemed to be directed at the heart of the person. It gave people a strong sense of contrast, and they would have a feeling that he shouldn't have said such things. It felt a little familiar. It's a little like Big Brother Feng style. Tang San was shocked, but after thinking about it, Tang San shook his head. How could this white-clothed Grim Reaper be Brother Feng? The more Hulaina asked, the more she found it interesting. She was the closest to the latter. This was the first time she had maintained such a distance for such a long time. The aura of the other party made people feel very calm and comfortable. Moreover, the closer one got, the stronger the feeling was, causing one to involuntarily want to get closer. However, Hulaina did not make such a move, and she still maintained her distance and rhythm. Wang Feng had long thought that after his body was tempered by the Red Lotus karmic fire, his body might really be comparable to the flesh of Tang Sanzang in Journey to the West. Pure and untainted, without any negative karma. His soul was pure, and his thoughts were naturally pure as well. Even the heaven and earth essence, Qi, wanted to move in. Any demon would want to take a bite out of it. It was a great attraction to living beings. This could be seen from the cultivation in the city of Massacre. Hulaina did not quite believe it. In terms of handsomeness, Tang Yin's appearance was one of the most handsome she had ever seen. However, appearance was not very attractive to Hulaina. She valued personal charm more and strength more. After walking for a while, Wang Feng suddenly said, "Do you feel it?" The two of them were slightly stunned and shook their heads. Seeing this, Wang Feng did not say anything and continued walking. After a while, Tang San suddenly said, "I feel it. I think I can feel it." Hulaina was slightly stunned when she heard this. After walking for a while, Hulaina also said in a low voice, "I feel it too. I can feel it too. Our position is constantly descending. The temperature of the blood pool below is very high. Every time we descend a certain distance, the temperature will increase. Moreover, if we continue walking, danger will come." After saying that, Hulaina could not help but look at the two of them. The white-clothed Grim Reaper was the first to sense it. Tang Yin was the second. She was the last. Although Wang Wu's vision was blocked by the mask, and he was standing behind, he could sense it first. This was enough to show how powerful his mental strength was. Tang Yin was the second. His mental strength was slightly higher than hers, but the difference was not very big. Tang San was not surprised because the white-clothed Grim Reaper's mysterious weapon required an extremely abnormal mental strength to kill people. It was normal that the other party could sense it first. At this moment, swoosh, 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 sharp blades suddenly shot out from Wang Wu's body. It was those sharp blades. It was the first time Hulaina felt the sharp blade attack from the white-clothed Grim Reaper at such a close distance. There were a total of 20 blades. As the two of them who had been paying attention to the white-clothed Grim Reaper for a long time, they naturally knew that the white-clothed Grim Reaper's strength had been increasing. The 20 pitch-black sharp blades rotated around the three of them within a range of tens of meters. Seeing this, the two of them were shocked. There was only one possibility for Wang Wu to do this. There was danger. The next moment, a sharp screech was heard. In their line of sight, a scarlet light, spot hundreds of meters away, quickly attacked the three of them. It looks like a bat. Is there only one? Hulaina could barely see it clearly. It was a blood-colored bat. It was somewhat similar to the bat pattern on the ground before the blood-colored light lit up in the killing field. "No, not just one," Tang Sin said in a low voice. "There are many of them." As soon as he finished speaking, the sharp cry sounded. A wave of sharp cries sounded and fell into the ears of the three of them. A blood cloud suddenly appeared in front of them. There were at least thousands of blood-colored bats in the blood cloud attacking them. Seeing this, Tang San and Hulaina instantly stopped in their tracks. Their whole bodies were slightly tense. Those bats looked like red dots from afar, but when they flew closer, they could see that their bodies were not small. The blood-colored wings were more than a meter long when they spread out, and there were many of them. If there were only one or two, it would be easy to deal with. But now there were so many of them. It would be very troublesome. What should we do? Hulaina whispered. Defend first, Tang San said in a low voice. But at this moment, the voice of the white-clothed Grim Reaper suddenly sounded. These are all cannon fodder. They are not official attacks. Keep moving forward. Save your strength. As soon as he finished speaking, the 20 sharp blades in the air surrounded the three of them and spun wildly from all angles. Each blade was circling the three of them in a 360-degree circle. Because it was so fast, the three of them looked like they were wrapped in a black ball of light. The next moment, swoosh, swoosh, countless bats tried to enter the black ball to attack the three of them. But almost in an instant, as if they had entered a meat grinder, they were all minced into pieces. The scene was terrifying. Each blade spun dozens of times in almost every second. They were also spinning. Under such circumstances, not a single bat could get within 80 meters of the three of them. In the air, they were minced into piles of meat paste and blood rain. Tang San and Hulaina watched in a daze. Hulaina suddenly had a feeling in her heart. She felt like she was being carried away by something. P.S. 8:00 in the evening, please give me some monthly votes. Chapter 517. The scene in midair was simply too exaggerated. Those blood-colored bats were immediately killed as soon as they got close to the black ball of light. Tang San and Hulaina felt their scalps go numb. The sharp blades formed by the dark nether spike had the terrifying effect of instantly killing these young blood bats. After a while, these blood-colored bats seemed to know that they would die if they charged over. They immediately circled in the air 80 meters away and screeched at the three of them. Be careful of their screeches, Wang Feng whispered. Their screeches are a type of low-pitched sound wave attack that can affect one's mind. Don't let your guard down. Wang Feng didn't need to remind them. The two of them could feel it. These blood-colored bats weren't simple. They weren't ordinary bats. However, they didn't seem like ordinary soul beasts either. They lived in the blood purgatory, and no one knew what kind of creature they were. They were probably intelligent. Hulaina's eyes flashed, and her pupils turned pink. She was already using her spiritual power to resist the bats. The bat screeches were very sharp at first, but the pitch was very long. As they got lower and lower, their influence became greater and greater. They were able to stimulate the killing intent in their hearts and slowly invade their minds. Tang San's body emitted a faint blue light. Tang San wasn't affected by this blue light at all. The blue light quickly enveloped the three of them, and it gave them a feeling of vitality. The blue light overlapped with the black ball of light formed by Wang Feng's blade, and the bat screeches seemed to be blocked. They were much softer. It seemed to be able to resist the bat's screeches. Domain. Hulaina was slightly stunned. Tang In wasn't simple. She actually had such a talent domain. The bat screeches were a type of special sound wave. Not only could it cause a spiritual attack, but it also had a strong perception effect. It could allow one to dodge the enemy's attack in advance. Normally, one could only use spiritual power to resist it. Only the power of a domain could isolate it. Could she have twin martial souls? Hulaina thought to herself. She had never heard of the Clear Sky Hammer having such a strange talent domain. There was only one possibility. Did Tang In have other martial souls? However, Hulaina didn't think too much about it. Be careful. These bats might attack again. Wang Feng's expression suddenly changed. They might be charging in. Upon hearing that, Tang San and Hulaina were both stunned. Why did he rush in? In the next moment, they understood. The bats gathered into a ball and began to spin. Then, they charged at the black ball of light again. These bats seemed to be very cunning. Although they did not rotate at the same speed as the blades, they kept rotating in the same direction. Even though some of the bats would be killed, many of them would be able to use the corpses of their companions to charge in. The moment he rushed in, Tang San's eyes flashed with a cold light, and several cold lights shot out from his hands. It was his hidden weapon. The bats barely managed to break through the black circle of light formed by the sharp blades, but they had also entered Tang San's blue-silver domain and were greatly disrupted by the power of the domain. They couldn't detect Tang San's hidden weapons through the sound waves and were instantly killed. But soon, the blood-red bats that broke through the black circle of light were not to be trifled with. They gathered together and resisted the power of the blue-silver domain. Hundreds of bats formed a large bat. Every time Tang San's hidden weapon stabbed at the assembled bat, he could only kill a few bats at a time. But when these bats died, new bats would immediately fill the gap and fly toward the three of them. Although Tang San's hidden weapons could accurately hit the enemy, he had used up a lot of hidden weapons in the 2 years he spent in the City of Massacre. Plus, he had nowhere to replenish them. Now, he didn't have many left. Plus, he could only kill a few bats at a time, so he couldn't cause any effective damage to the assembled giant bat. At this moment, Wang Feng spoke. Hulaina, use your charm to disrupt the minds of these bats and keep their formation loose. Wang Feng had just finished speaking. Tang San followed up and said, I used the vast sky hammer and directly smashed apart this large-scale bat that was assembled. As long as it breaks, it'll be difficult for them to resist. Hulaina nodded. Her charm was not only limited to men. Charm itself was a kind of mental attack. It could also interfere with all kinds of creatures, especially these bats that use sound waves to attack. It could also have a strong impact on them. The requirements were not high. She just needed to affect the bats to assemble. Then, she would use Tang San's clear sky hammer to break these bats so that they couldn't assemble. Once they couldn't assemble, they would be affected by this blue field and couldn't attack the three of them effectively. Soon, the pink pupils in Hulaina's eyes lit up slightly, and a faint mist was emitted from her body. The pink light enveloped the huge bat that had been formed. Her charm took effect. Almost visible to the naked eye, those bats swayed and couldn't maintain their formation. Their minds were disturbed, so it was naturally difficult to maintain their formation. At the same time, a huge hammer appeared in Tang San's hand. He directly threw it into the air. After being smashed by the hammer, the bats that were already loose were instantly scattered. Wang Feng's eyes focused. He pulled out a sharp blade from the black circle of strangulation and quickly cut the bats that broke the formation. The remaining 19 blades were still spinning at a high speed, blocking the bats that were ready to attack from the outside. Although there was only one sharp blade, under Wang Feng's control, all the scattered bats were quickly wiped out. Tang San's hidden weapons were responsible for some of the bats that escaped the net. After all, there were many bats, and hundreds of them rushed in. The three of them could be considered to have played their respective roles and blocked this wave of attacks. After this wave of attack, the bats stopped attacking. There were many of them, at least thousands of them. They were like a red cloud in the air, screaming. Tang San and Hulaina heaved a sigh of relief. The three of them quickly rushed forward. But soon, Tang San was the first to stop. These bats are screaming even louder. Hulaina's face darkened slightly. Although her perception wasn't clear enough, she also found that something was wrong. Their boss should be here. Tang San's tone was a little gloomy. The blood-red bats were not weak. In terms of strength, each of them had hundreds or even thousands of years of cultivation. Among them, there was no lack of bats with thousands of years of cultivation. Their boss had at least tens of thousands of years of cultivation. And for sure, as their boss, they naturally had more powerful strength. But if they had other abilities, it would be troublesome. These bats must have a way to communicate with each other. After the attack, just now, their boss may have some understanding of our abilities. Wang Feng continued, if we want to use the same method to deal with their boss again, I'm afraid it will be very difficult. In a chapter. Chapter 518. Tang San and Hulaina nodded. That's right. These blood-colored bats weren't ordinary soul masters. In this blood purgatory, they had quite a bit of intelligence. Soon, the three of them saw a huge, dark golden bat appear on the blood-colored rock above the small path in front of them. This bat was very big, even bigger than the previous one. It had 3 heads and dark golden wings. When it flew, it was at least 10 meters long. When it flew past the 3 of them, it was simply covering the sky. This is their leader? Hulaina took a deep breath. A dark golden bat. I'm afraid this is at least equivalent to a 10,000-year soul beast. The 3 of them couldn't use soul skills. It was obviously not easy to deal with a 10,000-year soul beast. And this dark golden bat was obviously very cunning. It didn't attack them immediately. It only circled and observed. It should be equivalent to a 30,000-year soul beast. Tangsen glanced at it. However, it should be very intelligent. Be careful, it might destroy our path forward. This path was somewhat anti-gravity, and there were no supporting points below. If it was destroyed, they would have no way to escape. But this dark golden bat didn't seem to have any intention of destroying the path. Its 3 heads and 6 pairs of eyes looked at the 3 of them like a hunter inspecting its prey. The dark light made Hulaina a little uneasy. Tangsen also felt that something was wrong. The black circle formed by the white-clothed reaper could kill many bats. Even if this dark golden bat wanted to break in, it would be greatly injured. Coupled with his blue-silver domain, these bats' abilities would be disrupted and they would be unable to continue attacking. If this dark golden bat forced its way in, it would be completely at a disadvantage. Wang Feng also focused on sensing this dark golden bat. It didn't feel strong to him, but in this special terrain, Tangsen and Hulaina couldn't use their full strength. Wang Feng was slightly better. Although he couldn't use the soul skill of the soul-devouring blood wings, he couldn't fly. But he could fly after being possessed by the dark angel martial soul. The 6 pairs of black energy wings weren't in an illusory state like before. They were completely solid, but it was troublesome to use them. It hasn't attacked yet. I'm afraid it wants to distract us. Hulaina seemed to have thought of something and said, should we speed up, or should we kill this bat on the spot before we move? Otherwise, if this continues, it will disturb our minds and the temperature around us is getting higher and higher. That's right. As they descended, the surrounding temperature continued to rise. There was also a faint, unique bloody aura that could affect one's mind. If the bats continued to harass them, they would face 2 types of dangers. Let's deal with it first. Tangsen muttered. Wang Feng didn't say anything. He just watched. At this time, the dark golden bat seemed to have sensed the intentions of the 3 people and let out a crazy sharp cry. He seemed to be proud of himself, but also seemed to be mocking him. Then, the dark golden bat suddenly covered its body with its wings. It looked like a big dumpling. The dark golden bat wings suddenly emitted an intense light, as if forming a dark golden wall, and then directly fell down. Ding, ding, ding. The sharp blade formed by the mysterious underworld spike couldn't completely penetrate the dark golden bat's wings, even though it was spinning at high speed. It used a special ability to make its wings hard. Tangsen and Hulaina both took a deep breath. Could it be that this bat can use soul skills? Soul beasts also had soul skills. They couldn't use their soul skills here. However, these soul beasts that lived here all year round seemed to be able to use their soul skills. Especially this dark golden, 3-headed bat. Wang Fengxin thought, damn, I knew this hell road was a little strange. Normally, the sharp blade formed by his mysterious underworld spike could even injure ordinary 30,000-year soul beasts, although it couldn't kill them instantly. However, that was under the condition that he couldn't use his soul skills. If these soul beasts could use their soul skills to defend themselves, it would be very difficult for him to injure them with his current control over the mysterious underworld spike. It could kill those low-level bats instantly. But now, against this dark golden bat, there was little to no effect. In fact, if the mysterious underworld spike formed into a huge weapon, it could also injure this dark golden bat. However, the bigger the weapon, the weaker it would be when Wang Feng used his spiritual power to control it. The range would also be smaller, and it would be easier for him to expose himself. After all, Wang Feng had practiced using his weapon to kill people for more than 4 years before he discovered that this sharp blade was the most powerful. If I can't kill people with my weapon, then I can only rely on my physical body. Wang Fengxin thought. His ability to kill people with his weapon had reached a bottleneck. If he couldn't increase the quality of his spiritual power, it would be very difficult to increase its power. Let's wait for it to come in and attack immediately. Tang San was ready to attack as he said in a deep voice. The clear sky hammer appeared in his hand. Hulaina nodded slightly, and a red light flashed in her eyes. As long as the dark golden bat broke through the black light and entered the blue-silver domain, the two of them planned to attack. With Hulaina's charm and the blue-silver domain, they could at least get rid of two of the dark golden bat's heads first. Then, they could destroy the last head while it was in pain after losing two heads. This was Tang San's plan. In just a few breaths, the dark golden bat's huge body had completely charged into the blue-silver domain. However, the moment it charged in, it suddenly screamed, and a dark golden fog was released from its body. Tang San and Hulaina, who were about to attack, trembled and looked on in disbelief. This is a domain? Hulaina looked at the dark golden fog in shock. How can this dark golden bat have the power of a domain? Only the power of a domain could resist the power of a domain. If this dark golden bat wasn't suppressed by the blue-silver domain, they would be in great danger. It's not a domain. It's a special aura that's close to a domain. At this moment, Wang Feng said in a deep voice, it's similar to Tang Yin's talent domain. Soul beasts usually had to have 100,000 years of cultivation to have the power of a domain, which corresponded to a tidal law. However, many special soul beasts would have a special aura when they had 10,000 years of cultivation. Cowardly Kuan was like that. Qing Qing was formed later, and she also had a special aura. The innate domain of a human soul master was similar to this. Wang Feng even felt that Tang San's domain wasn't a real domain, because he was too weak and couldn't fully unleash the power of the blue-silver domain. It was similar to an aura. Right now, this dark golden bat clearly had the same ability. This dark golden bat was the king of these bats, and it had stayed in this bloody hell's path for many years. Although Wang Feng was a little surprised that it had such an ability, he could understand. After a short moment of shock, the other two quickly understood. End of chapter. Chapter 519. The shriek rang out again. The light on the dark golden bat's body expanded rapidly until it completely resisted the blue-silver domain. It even covered a larger area. Hulaina groaned. She felt that the blue-silver domain, which was full of vitality, was weakening rapidly. As the dark golden light shrouded the area, the killing intent in her heart began to riot. It's a special aura that can stimulate the killing intent in our bodies. The dark golden bat is stronger than me. It can cover my domain and even weaken the effects of my domain. Tang San said in a low voice. He also felt the killing intent in his heart. However, as the owner of the blue-silver domain, he could control it completely and would not be threatened by the dark golden bat's light. The blue-silver domain could not make the dark golden bat lose control. It was equivalent to losing most of its effects. Tang San did not dare to withdraw it. Once he withdrew it, the effect of the dark golden bat's domain would be even more intense. At this moment, the strange dark golden bat had put the three of them in a dangerous situation. Should we run? Hulaina whispered. We can use our speed to move forward quickly, but it's more dangerous. No, it might destroy the path ahead of us. Tang San shook his head. As soon as he finished speaking, the dark golden bat seemed to know what Hulaina was thinking. Its three heads suddenly screeched violently. Then, it suddenly shot out 3 scarlet light waves. The 3 of them, who were already alert, quickly moved forward and dodged 2 of the light waves. However, the dark golden bat was very cunning. It directly bombarded the path in front of them. The scarlet light landed on the small path and instantly blasted open a hole that was several meters wide. Countless pieces of gravel fell down and merged into the blood pool below. A cold light flashed in Tang San's eyes when he saw this. The clear sky hammer appeared in his hand again. He suddenly attacked the huge dark golden bat. However, without Hulaina's charm interference and the blue-silver domain, the dark golden bat dodged directly. In the dark golden bat's special aura, the dark golden bat's senses were also greatly enhanced. It was obviously not that easy to attack it. I'll give it a try. A scarlet light flashed in Hulaina's eyes. Her martial soul directly attached to her body, and a furry tail appeared behind her back. Suddenly, a scarlet light burst out from her eyes and shot towards the dark golden bat eye. This was evidently a special soul skill from her skull. Not only could it temporarily increase one's spiritual power, but could also increase one's charm. Seeing this, Tang San did not hesitate. He brandished the clear sky hammer once again. A cold glint flashed in Wang Feng's eyes. He swung his hand and threw the special dagger out. The dagger he had obtained from the shadowless assassin was extremely sharp and destructive. It could even injure his own body. Wang Feng poured in his soul power and threw it out. Then, he used his spiritual power to control it. It was extremely powerful. After obtaining this dagger, Wang Feng had toyed with it for a while. Although he couldn't control it like the mysterious underworld spike, if he threw it out with his own strength, and with the help of his mental strength, he could change the trajectory of the dagger. It could also be a huge threat. Hulaina's skull's soul skill was clearly not simple. Even the dark golden bat in his own aura trembled violently, and its nimble body became much slower. At this moment, the clear sky hammer blew one of the bat's heads away. The god-slaying dagger accurately pierced through one of the heads. Then, like a boomerang, it returned to Wang Feng's hand. After losing two of its heads, the dark golden bat let out a shrill scream. Hulaina and Tang San were delighted. At this moment, be careful. Bat-type soul beasts usually have the ability to reincarnate. At this moment, Wang Feng suddenly reminded them, don't give it any chance. Wang Feng suddenly recalled that he had encountered a soul beast similar to a bat in the extreme north. However, it was an ice-type bat. It had strong regenerative abilities. When they heard Wang Feng's words, the two of them did not react. The bats outside seemed to have appeared. They rushed in and forced their way through the black circles. After that, they were fed into the dark golden bat's remaining mouth. Seeing this, Tang San and Hulaina's faces turned gloomy. Wang Feng also shook his head slightly. After eating several small bats, the two heads of the dark golden bat healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. If we do it again, it will be difficult for this dark golden bat to be hit. This thought appeared in their minds. This dark golden bat was very fast. If they used the same move, they might not be hit. Do it again. At this moment, the white-clothed Grim Reaper's voice slowly sounded. This time, get rid of 3 of its heads at once. Hearing this, the two of them were stunned. I'm afraid not. The soul skill of my soul bone can't be used again in a short period of time. Moreover, this dark golden bat might not be hit. Hulaina shook her head. Tang Sen nodded. Even if his skull still had the purple divine light soul skill, it would be difficult to cut off 3 heads at once. Especially the closer they were to the other party, the stronger the influence of the dark golden mist. I have an idea, Wang Feng said slowly. Later, you two focus on the sky. Tang Yin, use the clear sky hammer and your purple light beam to deal with 2 of its heads. I will deal with the remaining 1. The two of them were stunned. Idea? What good idea? The soul skill of Hulaina's skull could barely make the dark golden bat lose control for a few seconds. It was already very difficult. After all, it was within the opponent's aura. However, although they had some doubts in their hearts, they still did as they were told. The two of them looked up and focused on the dark golden bat. Their eyes did not move. Wang Feng, who was at the back, nodded secretly. Immediately, the blood traces on his body faintly appeared. A black light, with Wang Feng as the center, instantly enveloped the two of them. It instantly spread to the sky and enveloped the light released by the dark golden bat. The moment this black light enveloped the two of them, several different kinds of extremely evil emotions quickly rushed into their minds. Almost instantly, the two of them almost went crazy. At this moment, a calm voice instantly woke the two of them up. Guard your mind. Get ready to attack the dark golden bat. At the same time, A pure aura quickly dissipated from Wang Feng's body and enveloped the two of them. They were barely able to withstand the attack of the black light. After the two of them woke up, they were both shocked. It's a domain. It's the white-clothed Grim Reaper's domain. He also has a talent domain. This was the domain that Wang Feng's dark angel martial soul had yet to fully form. But at this moment, it also revealed some of its fangs, revealing a ferocious and terrifying aura. P.S. Going out today, there should be 3 or 4 more chapters tonight. Chapter 520. Wang Feng had been cultivating the dark angel martial spirit for 2 years in the capital of Massacre. Finally, at this moment, it revealed a bit of ferocity. As early as in the extreme north, when the first blood pattern of the dark angel martial spirit was activated, it formed a special aura. In this aura, it could make living creatures lose their minds and become incomparably furious. It could also absorb the life force of living creatures. However, Wang Feng almost never used it. After entering the capital of Massacre, he cultivated the dark angel martial spirit and activated the other 5 blood patterns. This special aura domain became even more powerful, but Wang Feng still did not use it. However, it was clear that this aura was the martial spirit's talent domain. Each blood pattern would bring a different blessing to this talent domain. Wang Feng was not clear about the specific effects. However, Wang Feng knew that the talent domain of the dark angel martial spirit was extremely powerful with the 6 blood patterns blessing. It might not be much different from a real domain. However, it was still a little lacking because the last blood pattern had not been activated. Even if it had not been activated, there was no doubt that the talent domain of the dark angel martial spirit was still very terrifying. This was the first time Wang Feng officially used it to deal with an enemy. Almost at the instant he used it, Wang Feng felt 6 different primitive emotions attacking his mind. However, his soul and spirit had long been purified and was completely unaffected by these 6 emotions. On the other hand, the other 2 people were completely stunned by the 6 emotions the moment Wang Feng activated the talent domain. If Wang Feng's aura had not leaked and poured his soul power into his voice, waking the 2 people up, Tang San and Hulaina would have completely lost their minds at this time. It could be seen how powerful the talent domain of the dark angel martial spirit was, and this was a completely unformed domain. Wang Fengxin thought that once the 7th blood pattern was activated, the formed domain would be even more powerful. At this time, Tang San and Hulaina, who were awakened, were stunned. The White Reaper also had a talent domain, and this talent domain seemed to be quite powerful. It almost made the 2 of them lose consciousness in an instant. However, what shocked the 2 of them even more was the next scene. As the black light covered the entire area, the dark golden bat's dark golden light mist domain was quickly covered, until it completely covered the dark golden bat. The 2 heads of the dark golden bat had just recovered when they were suddenly enveloped by the black light. In the next moment, the 3 heads let out different cries as if they had gone mad. They were even biting and killing each other. The 3 heads seemed to be fighting with each other. His body was falling rapidly, as if he had completely lost consciousness. The 2 of them couldn't help but think of the same thing. Domain suppression. Clearly, this dark golden bat had been completely hit by Wang Wu's domain power, and from the looks of it, it was extremely serious. The dark golden bat's special talent domain was completely crushed. How strong is the white-clothed death god's talent domain? Or is it that he was born to restrain his opponent? That's too exaggerated. Tang Sin thought to himself, and it greatly affected me and Hulaina just now. Is this the talent of the white-clothed reaper? The white-clothed death god soul power rank wasn't high, and soul masters couldn't use soul skills here. It was obvious that this was the talent domain of the opponent's martial soul. It was truly incomparably miraculous. Even this dark golden bat could be completely affected and even driven mad. What a strong talent domain. Hulaina thought to herself. Just how strong is this white god of death? How many more things is he hiding? From 2 years ago until now, although the white-clothed death god was very strong, it was very limited. Other than killing people with his weapon, he rarely revealed any other powerful abilities. Although Hulaina had expected that the opponent must have hidden his strength, she didn't expect it to be so exaggerated. Another talent domain, and it was so strong. Do it. Wang Feng's low voice sounded again. Although this domain was strong, it consumed a lot of soul power. Wang Feng didn't want to exhaust his soul power for a long time. Hearing that, the two of them immediately moved, especially Tang San. At this moment, the Dark Golden Bat Emperor was in a state of confusion, and it was the best time to attack. He didn't hesitate at all. The clear sky hammer in his hand directly smashed towards one of the heads. At the same time, the skull flashed with purple light, and a purple light pillar shot towards the middle bat head. It was the skull's soul skill, purple divine light, and Hulaina used her charm ability to support the harassment. Wang Feng threw out the god-slaying dagger again. At this moment, the Dark Golden Bat Emperor obviously couldn't dodge and was hit directly. The three heads instantly exploded. Following that, the entire body started to shrivel up rapidly and then fell into the blood pool below. Seeing that their leader was killed, the rest of the blood-colored bats scattered. Only then was the ambush completely resolved. Tang San and Hulaina came back to their senses and inhaled the pure aura that Wang Feng was emitting. Tang San's blue-silver domain was released again, and the two of them felt refreshed. Activating a talent domain normally consumed a lot of soul power. Let's continue on our way. Wang Feng's low voice sounded again. Don't stop. The more we stay, the more dangerous it is. Tang San and Hulaina nodded. Although they had consumed a lot of soul power in this battle, they didn't use much of it. Basically, they only attacked seriously when the Dark Golden Bat appeared. In this battle, the three of them played their own roles. The Dark Golden Bat's special Dark Golden domain was something that the three of them didn't expect. If even a bat had such an ability, no one knew what would happen in the future. Wang Feng didn't expect this Dark Golden Bat to be so strong, and it even had a talent domain. The three of them traveled forward at a constant speed while slowly recovering. After this battle, Tang San and Hulaina trusted each other a little more. After all, they had fought side by side. As for the mysterious white-clothed Grim Reaper, he gave off an extremely mysterious feeling. He seemed to have no words to describe his uniqueness and power. However, it gave the two of them enough confidence. If it was just the two of them, the situation would probably be worse than imagined. The temperature around us is getting higher and higher. Tang San whispered. Hulaina nodded. Wang Feng was also silent for a moment. After walking for about 100 meters, they encountered the second wave of attacks. It was a group of mad flame crows, a powerful bird beast that lived in a fire-type environment. There were about 1,000 of them, and they were even stronger than the blood-colored bats. Among them, the Mad Flame Crow King even had a cultivation of more than 30 to 40,000 years. But with the three of them working together, they managed to resist. Wang Feng used the black halo formed by the sharp blades to block a large portion of the cannon fodder soul beasts. Only the strongest among them, the Mad Flame Crow King, could barely break in, but the three of them used the same trick and killed it instantly. This was the second wave of attacks. After this wave of attacks, Hulaina and Tang San were sweating a lot. The two of them planned to rest for a while. But before they could rest for half an hour, many exploding flame insects flew out from the blood pool below. Chapter 521. This was a type of flying insect that could self-explode. Their lifespan was less than a few years, but their reproduction speed was very fast. They only lived in hot environments, and when they encountered an enemy, they would self-explode, releasing a terrifying explosive force that was more than 10 times stronger than their own. They were densely packed, and they covered the sky. These exploding flaming insects were much weaker than the previous two waves. They couldn't even compare to the cannon fodder soul beasts. However, they posed a terrifying threat to the three of them. The explosive power of each insect could affect a range of 30 meters. It didn't seem big, but if there were a series of explosions, it would create a chain effect that would create an explosion range of hundreds of meters. In this wave, Wang Feng used his sharp blade to kill most of the exploding flaming insects, while Tang San used his hidden weapon to kill a small portion. Hulaina was the key. She used her seduction soul skill to change the trajectory of the exploding flaming insects' explosions. This reduced the impact of the explosion. However, after this wave, the small path in front of them was destroyed by the explosion for 100 meters. The huge barrier made the three of them stop in their tracks. 100 meters, Tang San looked at the small path in front of him and frowned. Even if he used his blue-silver grass to fling the two of them away, one of them would be left behind. Furthermore, his blue-silver grass couldn't cover such a long distance, so it couldn't form a bridge. 100 meters was too far. With their physiques, they couldn't cross such a distance. The explosion range of the exploding flaming insects was too large. Although Hulaina used her seduction soul skill to change the direction of the exploding flaming insects' explosions, the exploding flaming insects' explosions were too big. This prevented the three of them from being attacked by the hundreds of exploding flaming insects. However, the small path in front of them wasn't spared. "What should we do?" Hulaina muttered. "The temperature here is getting higher and higher. If we go back, we'll die. However, we can't cross such a long distance now." The two of them were silent. "I can fling the two of you over," Wang Feng said at this moment. He actually had two methods. The first was to activate second gear and hide his mysterious underworld armor. With his immense strength, he could easily fling the two of them over 100 meters away. However, this required their trust. If Wang Feng had any thoughts of betrayal, they would fall into the blood pond hell below. Furthermore, as the temperature continued to rise, the blood pool hell below was clearly not simple. Once he fell into it, even if Tang San's body was resistant to fire and he had swallowed 2 kinds of immortal herbs, it would be difficult for him to escape death. Furthermore, what if there were other powerful soul beasts in the blood pool? Do you have such great strength?" Hulaina could not help but ask. Soul skills couldn't be used in this place, so it was very difficult to throw someone more than 100 meters away. The main reason was that it was very difficult to find a foothold on this kind of small path, unlike on flat ground. "Even if you throw us over, what will you do?" Tang San asked after a moment of silence. Yes, even if Wang Feng threw the two of them over, what would he do? Could it be that he was going to throw himself away? "I have my ways," Wang Feng said calmly. Seeing this, Hulaina and Tang San were confused. "Don't hesitate. The fourth wave of attacks is coming soon. We don't even know how many waves there will be." Wang Feng's hoarse voice continued. The absurdity of Hell's Road somewhat exceeded Wang Feng's imagination. Wave after wave of attacks rained down relentlessly, and each wave was more dangerous than the last. "Okay, I believe you." Tang San thought for a while and said decisively, "If the white-clothed Grim Reaper really wanted to attack them, the two of them might be wiped out in the first wave of attacks. He wouldn't wait until now. Moreover, there was no other way now." "Me too." Hulaina turned around and looked at Wang Wu, who was still dressed in white, with a little light in her beautiful eyes. The difficulty of Hell's Road seemed to be even more exaggerated than what her teacher said. If it were only her and Tang Yin, they would probably suffer a fatal blow when the Dark Golden Bat domain was activated in the first round, and it would be even harder to say what would happen later. Now, she was full of trust in the white-clothed Grim Reaper, and she admired his mysterious and powerful strength. Furthermore, Hulaina was even more certain that this white-clothed Grim Reaper had most likely known the two of them before entering the City of Massacre. Okay then, Wang Feng and Hulaina exchanged positions and untied the rope around their waists. Then, he grabbed Tang San's shoulder and put away the sharp blade. The Xianming armor suddenly disappeared, and second gear was temporarily activated. Following that, Wang Feng suddenly swung and threw Tang San out as if he was throwing a pebble. The terrifying force even caused a terrifying shockwave on the spot. Tang San directly drew a parabola in midair, and in the end, Tang San used the ghost shadow perplexing track to land safely on the opposite side of the road. The whole process only took a few seconds. When Tang San was thrown, he didn't even have time to react when he felt a strong force coming from behind and throwing him out. That feeling was as if it was a few times stronger than the pressure of a waterfall that was hundreds of meters high. Quick, the road on the ground is going to crack. Wang Feng walked to Hu Laina's side, grabbed her shoulder, and was about to throw her out. Wait, Wang Wu, what are you going to do? Hu Laina's heart tightened and asked with concern. How are you going to come over later? It's none of your business. After Wang Feng finished speaking, he directly threw Hu Laina out as if he was throwing a basketball. Because of the great force, the road under Wang Feng's feet almost had countless cracks and was on the verge of cracking. It was difficult for Hu Laina to maintain her balance when she fell from a parabola. However, a tail suddenly stretched out from behind her. That foxtail was more than 5 meters long and covered with sharp thorns. It looked extremely hard. After releasing the tail, Hu Laina's body seemed to have regained balance. When she landed on the ground, her tail first pierced into the road, and then, with the soft elastic force of the tail, she unloaded the huge force when she fell and bounced to the other side. That was how she landed perfectly. After landing, Hu Laina and Tang San looked at Wang Feng on the opposite side and waited quietly. At this time, because Wang Feng used too much force, the road he was on began to collapse, and the road behind him also began to collapse. Seeing this, Hu Laina and Tang San's hearts sank slightly. What should we do? Hu Laina looked at Tang San behind her. Are we just going to leave like this? Tang San shook his head. The god of death in white helped him. How could he just leave like this? Is there any way? Hu Laina racked her brains. It seems that we can't help him at all now. It was too difficult to cross such a long distance, and they couldn't fly. Now we'll guard here in case there are more attacks. Tang San said in a deep voice, I believe that he should have a way. But as soon as he finished speaking, the road on the opposite side began to collapse crazily. What can he do? Hu Laina was a little anxious. At this moment, Wang Feng moved. Because of the collapse of the road, he first took a few steps back. Then, he charged forward and jumped up directly at the moment when the road under his feet collapsed. Seeing this, Hu Laina and Tang San were slightly startled. Jumping over directly? It was impossible to just rely on physical fitness, wasn't it? After all, leaving someone so far behind and jumping so far were two completely different things. A shot put could be thrown more than 20 meters, but a person couldn't jump so far. If he used soul skills, he could do it. But he couldn't use soul skills now. Wang Feng indeed couldn't jump so far, but when he jumped into the air, he thought of something. 20 sharp blades in a trapezoidal shape appeared at the landing point under Wang Feng's feet every few meters. Wang Feng gently stepped on the sharp blade with his toes, borrowed the force, and quickly jumped on the second sharp blade, and then repeated the cycle. From a distance, it seemed that he walked down the stairs easily. Seeing this scene, Tang San was dumbfounded and couldn't help but have an idea in his mind. Could it be like this? P.S. Thank you for your concern. I'm a little drunk today, so I only typed 2 pictures. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve. I wish you a reunion with your family on New Year's Eve. From tomorrow onwards, I can only update at least 5 times. From February 1st, I will be able to update 10 times. Dear readers, please bear with me. Chapter 5:22. Wang Feng could jump a few meters with a light tap of his toes on the stairs formed by the sharp blades. If the path behind him collapsed, he could still jump tens of meters. However, if Wang Feng didn't have any other methods, he wouldn't be able to control the distance behind him. Therefore, he thought of an alternative way of using the sword flight technique. Wang Feng remembered that the sword Douluo could use sword flight. However, the sword Dalu did not use his spiritual power. Instead, he used his soul power. He was a titled Dalu, and his soul power had reached a terrifying level. He could control the sword to bear the weight of a soul master. In addition, the sword Dalu's martial soul was the 7 kills sword. The mysterious underworld spike was not a martial soul. It was a soul bone. However, after refining it, there was a connection between the soul bone and the body. If Wang Feng wanted to use sword flight, his spiritual power would not be strong enough. The sword formed by the mysterious underworld spike would not be able to bear his weight. It would also be very unstable. However, Wang Feng could levitate the sharp blades in midair and use them to jump. This was the second method that Wang Feng thought of. However, Wang Feng had not tested this method before. In theory, it was much more dangerous than just throwing it over. This was because the control of the sharp blades was related to one's spiritual power. If there was a slight mistake in his spiritual power, he could miss a step and fall. Therefore, Wang Feng did not let Tang San and Hulaina try this method. If something happened, he would not be able to save them. If something happened to Wang Feng, he could use the black wings of the Dark Angel to fly up. However, his identity would be exposed. Of course, there was another reason to show off. The distance between the sharp blades was not far. Wang Feng did not expect to use this method for the first time. If my spiritual power becomes stronger. At this moment, Wang Feng suddenly thought, can I create lotuses with every step? The mysterious underworld spike would automatically form under his feet with every step. He didn't want to borrow the force to jump. Although it was a little cool if he walked over slowly, with the Xian Ming thorn growing a lotus flower under his feet with every step, wouldn't it be more pretentious? Forget it. I'll be beaten up if I do that. This is such a dangerous place, and you're still walking around leisurely? Wang Feng secretly shook his head. He stepped on a sharp blade, and in a few ups and downs, he quickly swept across the remaining dozens of meters. Then, he landed on the small path and said softly, "Don't waste time. Let's go." The two of them, this incomparably novel method clearly caused Tang San and Hulaina to be somewhat shocked. It was probably an unexpected but reasonable feeling. Both of them had seen each other kill people with their weapons, but they had never thought that they could also fly with their weapons. However, the two of them could clearly sense that the white-clothed Grim Reaper's spiritual power was extraordinarily strong, and his soul power was also somewhat special. A sharp blade that was 1/2 meter long and as thin as a cicada's wing was suspended in the air. It was not that simple to catch a person's weight. They could clearly see that when the white-clothed Reaper fell, the sharp blade sank a little. In other words, it couldn't carry a person for a long time. However, to be able to continuously step on the ground without falling was already a feat after Wang Feng arrived. The three of them did not stop and continued walking. The path probably led downward in a circular fashion. The three of them were not slow at all. They had already passed through 3 shock waves. The further down they went, the stronger the ferocious blood aura in the blood pool became. The murderous aura could slightly resist the ferocious blood aura, and Tang San's blue-silver domain could also resist it. However, the domain was constantly open, which consumed a lot of soul power and spiritual power. Fortunately, Wang Feng's aura could also weaken the ferocious blood aura, so the three of them were not corroded by the ferocious blood aura after walking for so long. After walking for about 500 meters, the 4th wave of attacks came. This wave of attacks was stronger than the previous 3. It was a type of phoenix tail blood goose that could spit out blood mist. There were about 60 of them flying 100 meters away, and their average cultivation was about 10,000 years. However, there was no leader. Moreover, they did not attack. They just kept spitting out blood mist that was as thick as blood and screeched violently. These beasts were getting more and more cunning. The blood mist was not poisonous, but as long as one breathed in it, a murderous intent would be aroused in one's body. The more one breathed in, the harder it was to resist. Even if Tang San activated his blue-silver domain, it would be difficult to resist. Even Wang Feng did not have a good way to attack these phoenix tail blood geese, because they were too far away and could not attack them at all. Fortunately, the blood mist did not directly harm them. It only aroused the murderous intent in their bodies. For Wang Feng, it did not affect him at all. However, for Hulaina and Tang San, it was very troublesome. It was more troublesome than directly attacking them. Not only could the blood mist arouse the murderous intent in their bodies, but it could also affect one's mind and numb one's spirit. The blood mist was very thick and contained water. It was very difficult to avoid it. It came from all directions and penetrated all openings. In the blood mist. "Hold on a little longer," Wang Feng said in a deep voice. "These phoenix tail blood geese can't keep spitting blood mist. They should retreat automatically after they finish." Similar to what Wang Feng said, the blood mist came at the cost of the phoenix tail blood geese's own blood aura. After a few minutes, the phoenix tail blood geese were exhausted and retreated while squawking. After the three of them broke through the blood mist, Tang San and Hulaina both took deep breaths of air. Both of them were covered in blood mist. Although they used their soul power to form a shield just now, the blood mist was very permeable. It could even corrode and penetrate their soul power shields. There was a faint bloody light in their eyes. Tang San was slightly better, but Hulaina's skin was starting to turn a faint pink. At this moment, there was not only the murderous intent in their minds, but also the murderous aura in this place. It was attacking their minds. Wang Feng grabbed both of their shoulders and absorbed the murderous intent and murderous aura in their bodies. After about a minute, the two of them finally recovered. Otherwise, if they continued like this, it would not be long before they went crazy. "How much soul power do you have left?" Wang Feng asked. 40%, Hulaina whispered. After 4 consecutive waves of attacks, they either used the power of their soul bones or used their soul power to resist the attacks. The consumption was not small. About 50%, Tang San released his blue-silver domain again and enveloped the three of them, reducing the pressure from the blood mist. Wang Feng nodded slightly. The murderous intent and murderous aura in their bodies were too strong. He could use his dark angel to absorb them. However, the consumption of spiritual power and the effect of soul power could not be resisted. "My guess is, at this moment," Wang Feng whispered, "I'm afraid there will be at least 10 waves of attacks." End of chapter. Chapter 523. Both of them shuddered when they heard this. 10 waves? How could there be so many? But we should be less than 500 meters away. Tang San took a deep breath. If it's that long, we might not be able to hold them off. Hulaina's face was a little red from breathing in the blood mist earlier, but her face suddenly turned pale. How could it be so exaggerated? Teacher said she only had 2 or 3 waves of attacks when she experienced it, Hulaina muttered to herself. When Hulaina came to the city of Massacre, Bibi Don had told her a little about the dangers of the Hell Road, but it was not as exaggerated as this. It seemed to confirm Wang Feng's words. The three of them walked another 100 meters and encountered the 5th wave of attacks. There were only 3 attacks this time, but they were not ordinary birds. They were a type of soul beast called the Scarlet Flame Flying Snake. There were only 3 of them, and each of them had a cultivation of more than 30,000 years. These scarlet beasts were more than 10 meters long and had 2 wings on their backs. They were not inferior to the Dark Golden Bat King from before. The 3 Scarlet Flame Flying Snakes surrounded the 3 of them in a triangle. One of them was dedicated to destroying the path, while the other 2 harassed the 3 of them. You and Tang install these 2. I'll deal with the one that's destroying the path first, Wang Feng said. There were not only 3 Scarlet Flame Flying Snakes, but 3 of them. They were much more difficult to deal with. After Wang Feng finished speaking, he walked over and activated his Original Sins domain. Wang Feng named the Dark Angel's domain Original Sins domain. This was because Wang Feng had already sensed that these 7 blood patterns represented an extremely evil and negative emotion. These negative emotions were similar to the 7 deadly sins that Wang Feng had learned about in his previous life. The 7 deadly sins were called original sins. They were evil emotions that all living beings would experience. In this domain, all living beings would be affected by different emotions. As long as they were affected by any emotion, they would be controlled instantly. Wang Feng believed that even a titled Douluo could not avoid it. It was just a matter of how strong the effect was. Unless one was like him, who used karmic fire to temper his body and cleanse his body and soul, he would be immune to the 7 deadly sins. To be precise, there were 6 of them. This was because the last blood pattern had not appeared or awakened. Thus, this was an incomplete original sin domain. The Crimson Flame Flying Serpent used its enormous body to destroy the path. It could even spit out poisonous flames from its mouth. Its entire body was covered in sparkling scales that were incomparably hard. Its only weakness was the top of its head. However, it could fly and easily dodge most of the attacks. It was not easy to attack the Crimson Flame Flying Serpent, as it was flying 70 to 80 meters above the ground. Once it saw the Crimson Flame Flying Serpent, which was tasked with destroying the path, it would immediately flee. Without the ability to fly, it was almost impossible to deal with it. At this moment, seeing Wang Feng attacking it, it directly flew up to 80 meters in the air. This happened to be the limit of Wang Feng's mysterious underworld spike. Furthermore, the sharp blade formed by the mysterious underworld spike couldn't directly cut through its body. The scales on its body were a special soul skill. The Crimson Flame Soaring Serpent hovered in the air and looked down at Wang Feng, hissing and spitting out acid as if it were saying, "Come here, Wang Feng. Wang Wu, my foxtail can throw you more than 30 meters, but it won't work if you go any higher." Hulaina panted as she spoke from behind. She had just used the soul skill in her soul bone and barely blocked the 2 Crimson Flame Flying Serpents with Tang Yin. Because the 2 Crimson Flame Flying Serpents were both attacking, they were flying very low. They were only 20 to 30 meters in the air. Wang Feng shook his head and suddenly smiled at the Crimson Flame Flying Serpent. Then he suddenly leaped high. In second gear, if he used all his strength, he could easily collapse the path under his feet. Therefore, Wang Feng didn't use all his strength. However, his body became very light and he leaped 20 meters into the air. This distance was far from enough to attack the Crimson Flame Flying Serpent. However, when he reached this height, a sharp blade flew over from afar and landed below Wang Feng's feet. Wang Feng stepped on the tip of his foot. He leaped several meters into the air again. The blade's point of leverage was very weak. Therefore, Wang Feng could only jump several meters into the air. However, this was enough. This was because Wang Feng's control speed was very fast. Swish, swish, swish. The sharp blade acted as leverage under Wang Feng's feet. In just a few blinks of an eye, Wang Feng was like an agile monkey climbing 60 to 70 meters into the air. He was too familiar with this. Wang Feng seemed to have rehearsed this scene many times in his mind. After crossing the 100-meter-long broken path, Wang Fengxin's mind became active again. Even if I can't fly now, I can't use sword kinesis flight. However, I can still attack enemies in mid-air with my control of the sharp blade and my body. However, this method is more troublesome. The Crimson Flame Flying Serpent was also shocked. It didn't expect this human to use such a strange technique to reach 60 to 70 meters into the air. "Tang Yin," Wang Feng abruptly yelled. His sharp blade was acting as leverage under his feet. He couldn't use it as a weapon now. Furthermore, the Crimson Flame Flying Serpent was too huge. The god-slaying dagger couldn't kill it. Tang Xin focused his gaze and swung the clear sky hammer in his hand. Wang Feng's palm sucked the clear sky hammer into his hand. Immediately after, 20 sharp blades overlapped under Wang Feng's feet. Wang Feng stomped down firmly. He leaped high into the air and smashed the Crimson Flame Flying Serpent's head. The Crimson Flame Flying Serpent screeched. It was completely controlled by the original Sin domain and couldn't react at all. Boom! The hammer fell, and the Crimson Flame Flying Serpent's head was smashed into pieces. With a thought, Wang Fengxin sent a sharp blade through the minced meat into the Crimson Flame Flying Serpent's body, crushing its organs. At the same time, Wang Feng used the same trick. From midair, he tapped the sharp blade lightly and headed for the other 2 Crimson Flame Flying Serpent. This method consumed a lot of spiritual power and required very accurate calculations. Otherwise, one careless mistake would cause one to fall directly. Probably other than Wang Feng, No one else had such immense spiritual power to control the sharp blade while calculating the landing point. The two crimson flame flying serpents that were still attacking Tang San and Hulaina had yet to react. As Wang Feng exerted the original Sin domain around him, they instantly lost control. And Wang Feng used this method to jump around the two crimson flame flying serpents with increasing proficiency. Under the original Sin domain, these two crimson flame flying serpents couldn't react. One of them was directly smashed to pieces by Wang Feng's clear sky hammer and then hammered the other one. However, the other crimson flame flying serpent seemed to be controlled by the original Sin domain, but it also reacted a little. Not only were both brothers killed by the same move, but its head tilted. When the clear sky hammer struck its body, it only scraped a series of scales and made a ringing sound. It couldn't cause any actual damage. In a chapter. Chapter 5:24. But at this moment, the red light in Hulaina's eyes directly shot into its two snake eyes, causing its dodging figure to pause. At the same time, the purple extreme divine light in Tang San's skull shot out at the perfect moment, hitting its head. 3 scarlet flame flying serpents were eliminated just like that. Wang Feng landed lightly with the help of his sharp blade, looking quite dashing. "How are you guys?" Wang Feng glanced at the two of them. This was already the 5th wave of attacks. Tang San and Hulaina were sweating profusely and their faces were pale. Obviously, their soul power had decreased by 20%. "I'm fine." Tang San took a few breaths and a scarlet color flashed in his eyes. "Fortunately, you killed that scarlet flame flying serpent first. Otherwise, I'm afraid there would be no road ahead." At this point, Tang San couldn't help but look at the white-clothed Grim Reaper. He didn't seem to be sweating. His white robe was still fluttering, and he didn't look like he had just fought a fierce battle. The way he attacked just now was also an eye-opener for Tang San. His soul power was already amazing, and the hidden weapon required a high level of skill. He knew how strong and precise the control was to be able to do that. The slightest carelessness would cause him to fall into the blood pool below. Only those who were extremely confident in themselves would dare to do that. "I only have 30% of my soul power left." Tang San looked ahead, but he still couldn't see the end. Was this the road to hell? Endless attacks, an endless road, and an increasingly hot and murderous environment. Even with Tang San's willpower, he was slightly shaken, but he immediately became firm again. "I also have 30% left." Hulaina took a few breaths. Her soul power consumption was relatively small, and she only needed to use it at critical moments. The close combat was left to the white-clothed Grim Reaper and Tang Yin. The surrounding environment is very bad. Wang Feng looked around. "If we recover our soul power here, it's easy to absorb the murderous aura in the blood pool below and cause serious damage to our soul power. This means it will be difficult for us to replenish our soul power." The further they went, the more violent and murderous the energy of heaven and earth became. Wang Feng could absorb it because he had the meteoric tear to compress and purify it, which also had a tempering effect. However, if Tang San and Hulaina absorbed the energy of heaven and earth here, there might be a big problem. This was also the reason why the further one progressed, the more difficult it became. Soul power could not be replenished. At every moment, he would be under tremendous pressure. At this point, they didn't even have the chance to turn back because most of the paths behind them had collapsed. He could only move forward. Tang San and Hulaina fell silent because they also felt it. The 3 rested for a while. Continue forward. Every 100 meters, they would suffer another wave of attack. During the 7th wave of attacks, a 40,000-year soul beast appeared. By the 7th wave, Hulaina only had about 10% of her soul power left. Her face was completely red, and her entire body was emitting waves of baleful aura. Clearly, he was already exhausted. Tang San was still able to hold on. He still had more than 20% of his soul power left, and his blue-silver domain could slightly purify the energy around him. However, Using the blue-silver domain consumed even more soul power, and it was impossible for him to replenish it. Moreover, even if Wang Feng absorbed the killing intent and baleful aura in their bodies, the damage to their minds could not be healed. Therefore, after the seventh wave, Hulaina could no longer hold on. At this moment, they were about 200 meters away from the blood pool below. The temperature in the air was already very terrifying. According to Wang Feng's estimation, it was at least 60 to 70 degrees. He estimated that he could fry an egg in his hand. Tang San's blue-silver domain was very practical. It could slightly reduce the surrounding temperature and allow one to regain consciousness. However, if he kept using it, he would not be able to hold on. I can't take it anymore. Hulaina's whole body seemed to have a high fever. She muttered, "You two go ahead. Don't worry about me." Fortunately, it was the sixth wave of attacks, and Wang Feng alone killed all of them. Because the sixth wave was a flying tiger-headed demonic flame eagle. Relying on Wang Feng's sharp blade, he barely managed to deal with it in midair for a long time before killing it. Neither of them used their strength. They only made a move during the seventh wave. Tang Sen was stunned and looked at Hulaina. He had the blue-silver domain, the uniqueness of the mysterious heaven method, and a huge amount of spiritual power. He also relied on the white-clothed reaper to absorb the boiling, killing intent and baleful aura by his side. He did not fall into a berserk state, nor did he faint. However, his body was already exhausted, and his mind was also beginning to weaken. Tang Sen also felt that every step he took was as heavy as lead. He was only slightly better than Hulaina. At most, one wave. Tang Sen felt that he could at most hold on for one more wave. Looking at Hulaina, Tang Sen fell into silence. Was he really going to leave her behind? In all fairness, Hulaina had played a great role along the way. After so many battles, was he going to abandon her just like that? Wang Wu, how much soul power do you have left? At this moment, Tang San looked at the white-clothed reaper. After 8 waves of attacks, if one had to say that the snake had played the greatest role, it would be the white-clothed reaper. Tang San suspected that if it was not for him, with just himself or Hulaina, they would not be able to survive the 3rd wave, let alone the 8th wave. Moreover, he was the main attacker in all 8 waves. However, the white-clothed reaper did not seem to have consumed much soul power. 60%. Wang Feng said casually. His soul power consumption was not much. Most of it was consumed by using the original Sin domain. However, his spiritual power consumption was huge. After all, using a sharp blade to attack consumed his spiritual power too quickly. In addition, it required all kinds of precise calculations. 60%. Tang San swallowed a mouthful of water. Was he really only level 50? Hulaina was already level 59. She could no longer hold on. He had used the most strength, but he still had so much left. Tang San did not dare to imagine. How'd he do it? However, at this time, Tang San did not have time to think too much. Then, Tang San glanced at Hulaina and said in a deep voice, "We can't leave her behind." After 8 battles and fighting side by side, he could not convince himself to leave her behind. "I'll carry her." Wang Feng frowned and said, "You and I will continue to move forward." With that, Wang Feng walked in front of Hulaina. At this time, she was already paralyzed on the path. Okay, Tang Sen did not hesitate. The other party was stronger than him and had more soul power than him. He had enough ability to carry Hulaina. "If you carry me, you won't be able to get out." Hulaina looked at Wang Feng and said in a weak tone, "Kill me and take the soul bone from my skull. I'll tell you a secret. I hope you can help me keep it." She obviously wanted to tell the secret about the soul bone in her skull. She hoped that this white-clothed reaper would treat the star well. Wang Feng shook his head. Hulaina was too naive. End of chapter. Chapter 525. Although a wisp of Xingxing's soul existed in the soul bone, it was actually closely related to her soul. Like Hulaina, even if the soul bone was still there, Xingxing's consciousness would most likely dissipate. However, after hearing what she said, Wang Feng was still a little silent. Stop talking nonsense. What's the difference between your body and a few pieces of pork to me? Wang Feng said impatiently. Do you think it would take a lot of effort for me to carry you? Hulaina, Wang Feng squatted down slightly and continued, climb up yourself. Hulaina was silent for a few seconds, and without hesitation, she gently climbed onto Wang Feng's back. The moment she climbed up, she felt her whole body go soft. The other party's aura made her feel refreshed. It was the first time she was so close to a strange man. Hulaina did not feel uncomfortable at all. Instead, she wanted to hug him even tighter, because that kind of attraction was too strong. I can't hold it anymore. No, I have to be reserved. Hulaina gently bit her lips and gently placed her hands that were red because of the heat on Wang Feng's shoulders. Her slender legs climbed onto Wang Feng's waist. Her upper body unconsciously pressed on Wang Feng's back, forming a huge outline. Wang Feng used a rope to slightly tighten Hulaina on his back. Logically speaking, Hulaina's body was as soft as a ball of cotton, which was very attractive to men. But sorry, it's impossible for me to get hard like this. Right now, I can get hard and soft whenever I want. No woman can tempt me. All those messy images get out of my pure soul's mind. Wang Fengxin thought. If his brain and soul had not been tempered by the Red Lotus Hellfire, he might really be tempted now. But it was very difficult now. He could control himself. Let's go, Wang Feng said calmly. Tang Sen nodded. After resting for a while, the two continued to move forward. Soon, the two encountered the 8th wave of attack. It was a 10-headed, scorching sun snake. Tang San was very familiar with it. This snake could not fly. It could only coil around the surrounding walls and small paths to attack. Wang Feng felt that this snake's cultivation was only around 40 to 50,000 years. Tang Sen said to let him attack this time. Otherwise, if he continued to walk, he might not be able to use the 20% of his strength that he had saved. Wang Feng did not hesitate as he watched Tang Sen use the clear sky hammer and the disorder splitting wind hammer technique to kill the 10-headed sun snake. Speaking of which, this was also the first time Wang Feng had seen the true disorder splitting wind hammer technique. After seeing it, he remembered that Tang San and Tang Hao should have cultivated the true disorder splitting wind hammer technique after the Pope took the throne. Tang San used all his remaining strength to stand on the small path in front of him. The clear sky hammer in his hand hammered into the void again and again. Every time he was shocked, a huge airflow would surround him, making it difficult for the 10-headed sun snake to harm Tang San. In its anger, it spat out a small golden ball, wanting to attack Tang San furiously. This is the inner core of the 10-headed sun snake, right? Wang Feng frowned slightly. From the perspective of living creatures, the 10-headed sun snake should be a soul beast, right? The inner core should be something similar to the soul core. In other words, at this time, the soul beast already had a soul core. I really don't know what the Douluo world will be like tens of thousands of years later. Wang Feng suddenly thought, would the Douluo world change greatly 10,000 years later because of him? However, even without him, the Douluo world would still have a huge change 10,000 years later. Just that, to what extent could he affect it? As the small golden ball came out, Tang San's last hammer strike suddenly stopped and hammered towards the small golden ball. A black airflow suddenly rose, as if forming a huge black dragon, and rushed directly towards the small golden ball. A muffled groan sounded, and the small golden ball suddenly trembled. The huge body of the 10-headed sun snake suddenly trembled and then suddenly stopped. Then, the snake began to rapidly shatter from its head. Finally, it collapsed, although it took too long to accumulate power. But the wild splitting wind hammer is indeed unique. The current Wang Feng was no longer the 6-year-old Wang Feng, so he was not too surprised by the wild splitting wind hammer technique. In terms of grade, the absolute wind and thunder divine spear technique that he had created was much higher than the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. After all, it borrowed the power of heaven and earth. But in terms of technique, the wild splitting wind hammer technique was much more perfect than his wind thunder absolute divine spear. After all, it was tempered and changed by countless people. In comparison, his wind thunder absolute divine spear still had many shortcomings, many areas that could be improved, and many areas that could be strengthened. After looking for a while, Wang Feng filtered it in his mind and found that he had actually studied the way Little 3 used his soul power. It seems that the brain, after being tempered by the Red Lotus Hellfire, is indeed extraordinary. If it was before, I would at most understand 20 to 30%. Wang Feng thought to himself. After all, this was the complete wild splitting wind hammer technique used by Tang San, and the last hammer strike was even used. It was not like the reversal of heaven and earth that Wang Feng barely created with just one technique. In the 2 years in the extreme north, Wang Feng did not make much progress in reversal of heaven and earth, mainly because he did not study it, and he felt that he needed a certain amount of opportunity to comprehend reversal of heaven and earth to a higher level. It was not like an epiphany. This kind of epiphany was too rare. In the 2 years in the extreme north, Wang Feng only had an epiphany when he created the Wind Thunder Absolute Divine Spear. Wang Wu, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to help you in the future. Tang San dragged his tired body and put away the golden bead. Maybe it's really as you expected. There will be at least 10 waves of attacks, because we will encounter them in less than 100 meters. It was not easy for him to defeat the 10-headed sun snake in the 8th wave by himself. Wang Feng also felt that Tang San's body was empty at this time, and there was not much soul power left. In addition to the exhaustion from the battle, his physical strength, endurance, and spirit were all exhausted. However, Tang San was able to resist the environment here because he had taken the immortal herb. Otherwise, he would probably be in the same situation as Hulaina. The further they went, the weaker the effect of Wang Feng's aura on them. After all, it was just a faint aura, not a domain aura. But Wang Feng could absorb the increasingly violent killing intent and evil aura from the two, which was very fatal. Wang Feng could not use the blue-silver domain for a long time. Tang San could only reluctantly follow behind Wang Feng now, recovering a little bit at a time and holding on with a strong will. End of this chapter. Chapter 526. Are you okay? Hulaina, who was behind him, looked at Wang Feng in a daze and murmured softly. Wang Feng nodded and suddenly touched Hulaina's head with his hand. Hulaina was slightly stunned, not knowing what this white-clothed Grim Reaper meant. Wang Feng just touched it lightly and directly retracted his hand. He was just sensing the aura of the stars, which was still stable. Tang San rested for a while, and the three continued their journey. After a while, there were only 100 meters left. About 100 meters away from the blood pool below, they could completely see the platform below the end of the path. It was also at this time. A ferocious roar could be heard. It's a dragon roar. Tang San was startled and immediately looked down. His face changed, and he suddenly had a breath left. It's a dragon. In the blood pool below, a pair of constricted eyes were staring at them, as if it had been watching them. Following this roar, the terrifying creature that had been silent in the blood pool finally moved. As soon as it moved, it almost pulled the blood pool below, and countless blood bubbles appeared, allowing the two to finally see its appearance. This was a dragon-shaped creature that was more than 40 meters long, but its whole body exuded an extremely fierce aura. It had ant-like legs, a snake body, eagle claws, and its whole body was burning with flame-like blood pool lava, exuding a scorching heat. It was a dragon-shaped creature that Tang San had never seen before. It seemed to be born from this blood pool. This blood pool had absorbed countless human blood and was highly toxic. Could it breed a creature here? Tang San felt a little scared. Ordinary dragon-type soul beasts were extremely rare in the Douluo world, and most of them were sub-dragons with impure bloodlines. But their strength was still very strong. But this one seemed to be a little different. This was a very powerful blood pool poison dragon. This more than 40 meters long dragon soared up and looked at the two of them like an eagle in the sky looking down at the chickens below. It's over. As soon as this poison dragon came out, its huge aura was more terrifying than most of the soul beast Tang San had seen before. 60,000 years. At least 60,000 years of cultivation. In terms of rank, he was at least equivalent to a rank 70 soul master, but his actual strength was probably several times stronger. 60,000 years. Wang Feng sighed. In such an environment, a 60,000-year-old poison dragon was indeed very strong. It was not inferior to a 70 or 80,000-year-old poison dragon. Tang Yin, can you still condense your clear sky hammer? Wang Feng said, all of a sudden. Tang Sen was stunned. He nodded and said, I can still condense my real body, but I don't have the strength to use it. That's fine as long as I can use it. Wang Feng said, take my clear sky hammer. This beast is a little troublesome. I plan to end it quickly. This poison dragon was indeed quite strong. Compared to his four underlings, it was not much weaker. Of course, it was his little brother from 2 or 3 years ago. By now, those fellows should have become very strong, right? Unknowingly, 2 years had passed in Slaughter City. Okay, Tang Sen did not hesitate at all. At this time, life and death were hanging by a thread. Tang Sen used his remaining soul power to condense the clear sky hammer's real body and threw it to Wang Feng. Then, he looked at him closely. Wang Feng loosened his muscles and bones. After thinking for a while, he untied Hulaina so that she would not be numb from the shock when they fought later. However, after a while of cultivation, Hulaina recovered a little and could barely stand. But after leaving Wang Feng's body, the surrounding environment was too uncomfortable for her. The current temperature had risen to 100 degrees. This was a very hot environment. Sometimes, the sparks from the bottom of the blood pool would accidentally stain their clothes and could be easily ignited. What does he want to do? Hulaina's face was flushed red. She could barely stand, and her vision was a little blurry. However, there was still soul power in her body that could resist a little. I don't know. Tang San shook his head. Wang Feng held the clear sky hammer and walked to the small path in front, quietly looking at the poison dragon. With his current second-grade strength, he could not win this poison dragon in a short time without using anything. Moreover, this environment had increased the strength of this poison dragon, especially the blood pool below. But without using any of his martial soul forms, and without using the Pango axe, Wang Feng still had a way to defeat this poison dragon. After all, he had cultivated in the capital of Massacre for 2 years. Wang Feng's body shook, and his upper body suddenly glowed with a violent purple light. A terrifying aura was emitted from his body. Torso soul bone. Tang San and Hulaina took a deep breath. Moreover, judging from the quality, the age of the torso soul bone was probably not ordinary. Yes, it was the torso soul bone, the blood-devouring ice dragon whale soul bone that Wang Feng fused with the cauldron of heaven and earth. The pressure emitted by the 100,000-year soul bone was enough to shock Tang San and Hulaina. Even the poison dragon roared at Wang Feng, and there was actually a little fear in its eyes. What kind of existence was the ice dragon whale? Even this poison dragon was intimidated by the big boss soul beast in the extreme north who had a cultivation of 90,000 years and became an overlord. This blood-devouring ice dragon whale's torso bone naturally retained some of the ice dragon whale's aura. To be precise, after the fusion of the two soul bones, there was still the aura of the blood-devouring dragon beetle. Of course, Wang Feng used the torso bone not only to suppress this poison dragon. Seeing this, the poison dragon's eyes flashed fiercely, and it opened its mouth to spit out several violent scarlet poisonous flames at Wang Feng. Spirit's seal, Wang Feng shouted in a low voice. Suddenly, a violent, icy, dazzling light condensed at his lower abdomen, and like a water column, it shot towards the poison dragon. The moment the scarlet poisonous flames came into contact with the icy mystic light, They were immediately frozen into countless ice cubes. When the poison dragon saw the ice cubes, it let out a shrill roar, as if it was very afraid of it. The icy mystic light covered the entire poison dragon, and in almost a few seconds, the entire poison dragon was instantly frozen into an ice sculpture. Even the poisonous flames that it had just shot out were completely frozen. The scene was exceptionally spectacular. This was not an ordinary ice seal, but a spirit seal. This was why this poison dragon could even freeze its consciousness. This was the ice dragon whale's proudest skill, and it was because of this that the ice dragon whale could barely seal the myriad spirit ice heart back then. With Wang Feng's current soul power, he could only freeze this poison dragon for about 10 seconds. It seemed like a lot, but it was already a lot. Following this, Wang Feng did not use his second soul skill, because there was no need for it. He held the clear sky hammer and stood on the small path. He recalled the various postures and details when Little Three used the disorder splitting wind hammer technique, and everything was clear in his heart. Following this, Wang Feng swung his hammer towards the void. In the next moment, Tang San's body shook, and he looked at the white-clothed death god in disbelief. Disorder-splitting wind hammer technique? P.S. There might be 2 more chapters tonight. End of chapter. Chapter 5:27. Under Wang Feng's hammer, the air shook, and a stream of air suddenly gathered around Wang Feng's body. Hulayina, who was in a daze earlier, could not see that strange posture. However, Tang Xin saw it clearly. It was the real wild-splitting wind hammer technique that his father had taught him over the past 2 years. How is this possible? Tang Xin muttered. Is he also a disciple of the Clear Sky sect? But his woohoo is not the Clear Sky hammer. Even if he's from the Clear Sky sect, not every disciple has learned the wild-splitting wind hammer technique. Boom, boom. While Tang Xin was thinking, Wang Feng did not stop. He recalled Tang San's posture when he performed the 81 hammer strikes, the way he channeled his soul power and various special techniques in his mind as if they were slowed down by 10 times. Sometimes they were fast, sometimes they were slow. Gradually, Wang Feng felt that every hammering motion of Tang San overlapped with the image of Tang San wielding the hammer in his mind. The chi aura around him became stronger and stronger. Vaguely, a black stream of air slowly rose from Wang Feng's body. Seeing this, Tang San, who was behind, became more and more shocked. No, Tang San thought frantically. He can't be a disciple of the Clear Sky sect. He didn't even know the wild splitting wind hammer technique before this. That's because he was very inexperienced from the first hammer strike. In the past 2 years, Tang San had been practicing the wild splitting wind hammer technique through Tang Hao's various methods. He practiced it for a few months before he could perform the 81 hammer strikes more skillfully. At that time, he completed it under the impact of the waterfall. After that, he spent some time practicing the 9-1. Therefore, Tang San could remember every hammer strike of the wild splitting wind hammer technique very clearly. He could tell at a glance that he was inexperienced. Although the first hammer strike of the white-clothed reaper was the starting stance of the wild splitting wind hammer technique, it was very inexperienced. It was obvious that it was his first time using it. Tang San was surprised, but he was not as shocked as he was now. However, as the other party swung the hammer, he became more and more skilled. After 60 hammers, not only was the form completely similar, but it was also somewhat similar. His every hammer strike is improving. He has obviously just learned the wild splitting wind hammer technique. This is only the first time I've used it. Tang San was a little shocked. Obviously, it was because he had just used the disorder splitting wind hammer technique, and this white-clothed reaper had secretly learned it from the side. Furthermore, he had only used it once, yet he was able to learn and apply it on the spot. Towards the end, he was able to use it with incomparable proficiency. How is this possible? What kind of talent was this? Tang San found it hard to imagine. This kind of talent was too terrifying. You want others to casually execute an absolute art but you can directly learn it. How are you going to live then? In fact, it was because Wang Feng was very familiar with the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. In addition, there were some traces of his own reversal of heaven and earth. That was why he could learn it so quickly. If it was any other technique, it wouldn't be so exaggerated. However, this was the true disorder splitting wind hammer technique. Another reason was that Wang Feng was very clear about the core techniques of the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. Therefore, in essence, he only needed to remember each of Tang San's special postures just now and use the skills to exert force. This was why he was able to apply what he had learned so quickly. However, this could not be considered as stealing, because he was standing there openly. Otherwise, this was something that Tang San had practiced for a long time. He has completely mastered the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. Tang San stared at the last few hammers in a daze. Yes, the last few hammers were almost exactly the same as what he had used, until the 80th hammer. The black aura on Wang Feng's body suddenly changed. There was actually a bit of scarlet color. At this time, Wang Feng's brain had entered a state of high rotation. His limbs and skin were emitting extreme heat. One had to know that his strength was much stronger than Tang San's. As for the wild hammering technique, each hammer strike was even more powerful. The consumption of Wang Feng's hammer was also much more than Tang San's. Most importantly, when Wang Feng used it, the blood traces on his body faintly glowed. 6 different kinds of extreme emotions seemed to be injected into each hammer. This was unconscious because Wang Feng's original Sin domain was still open. Perhaps even Wang Feng himself did not know. Until the last hammer, the 6 blood traces on Wang Feng's body lit up at the same time. In the last hammer, the clear sky hammer seemed to have been injected with 6 different kinds of power. It was covered with 6 blood traces, as if it had become a blood hammer. Boom! 9-9 returned to 1. The last hammer of the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. The black aura around Wang Feng's body turned blood black, forming a blood-black dragon. It was full of ruthlessness and ferocity. It suddenly rushed towards a frozen poison dragon with a roar. The giant dragon formed by the aura directly penetrated the incomparably huge poison dragon. The power of his last hammer doesn't seem to be just the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. Tang Sen looked at the blood-black dragon. The disorder splitting wind hammer techniques, 9-9 returned to 1, really combined the power of the previous hammer into the void and erupted with an extremely terrifying power. It could kill enemies of a higher level, but the weakness was also very obvious. It was very difficult to have a chance to use it like this. A slightly more powerful soul master could easily interrupt it. Once interrupted, one would also suffer a backlash. Obviously, the other party had noticed this weakness through the observation just now, so he immediately sealed the poison dragon in ice. How strong is he exactly? Tang Sen looked at the blood-black dragon that was even bigger than the one formed by his 9-9 return to 1. Obviously, the other party's strength was much stronger than his. Even if he didn't use it well at the beginning, as it gradually perfected, the strength he could unleash in the end was much stronger than his spear. And after the poison dragon was broken through by the blood-black dragon, it suddenly became still. Immediately after, the frozen body began to crack rapidly. Crack, crack, crack. Countless cracks appeared on the ice sculpture of the poison dragon, until its entire body shattered. With a bang, it turned into endless powder. This blood-red poison dragon was much bigger than the 10-headed sun snake, so the scene was even more shocking. A body that was more than 40 years old turned into snow fragments. Not even a drop of blood was left. It could be seen how powerful this spirit-sealing soul technique was. And a blood-red prism crystal also emerged from the exploding body of the blood-red poison dragon. It was the inner core of this poison dragon, or rather, the soul core. Wang Feng held this crystal core and felt the energy inside slightly. He couldn't help but be shocked. I don't know how long this blood-red poison dragon has been nurtured in this blood pool. The previous challengers didn't disturb it, but now it has appeared. This means that the Hell Road must have changed. Wang Fengxin thought to himself. But this crystal core seemed to be very useful, containing surging energy inside. But there was an extremely terrifying poison inside, so it should be very difficult to absorb it casually. When the time comes, I'll use the cauldron of heaven and earth to refine it. However, this was not a difficult task for Wang Feng. He had the cauldron of heaven and earth. Even if this poison dragon's inner core was difficult to absorb, he could directly refine it into a soul crystal, or something else would do. End of chapter. Chapter 528. The only drawback of this kind of refining was that it could not preserve the good characteristics of the poisonous dragon's inner core. It could only be refined into pure poison. Maybe it was because Wang Feng was not familiar with it. If the cauldron of heaven and earth could only refine the poison in it and preserve the original characteristics of the inner core, it might cause a mutation in the opponent's martial soul. How are you? Wang Feng looked at Tang San and Hulaina. Tang San was completely in a daze. Hulaina was a little dizzy. When she saw Wang Feng coming over, she wanted to climb onto his back. Because the temperature here was even worse, the soul power in her body had also decreased. Tang San's blue-silver field was also gone. If she was a little further away from Wang Feng, she would not be able to support herself. Wang Feng tied her on his back again, but he found that Hulaina's hands were intertwined, and she was panting. Her breath was extremely hot. Wang Feng frowned slightly. He knew that the evil blood aura here had invaded her mind. The killing intent in her body was boiling. Only when she was close to him could it be relieved, so she wrapped herself tighter and tighter around him like a koala. Wang Feng reached out and absorbed some of the killing intent and evil blood aura in her mind. Only then did Hulaina's consciousness become a little clearer. She hurriedly supported herself on Wang Feng's shoulder again, and her legs loosened a little. She lowered her head and did not speak. You learn it just now. Tang San looked at the white-clothed Grim Reaper and asked in a daze. Kind of. I just watched for a while. I think your hammer skills are quite powerful. It just so happens that I have nowhere to use my protective power. Wang Feng glanced at Tang San and thought, isn't a little too much? However, Xiao San should not be so easily defeated. Indeed, upon hearing this, Tang San shook his head with a bitter smile. Wang Wu, if I had not observed you for over 2 years and fought with you before, I would have really suspected that you were that friend of mine who had disappeared for many years. His talent is also rather frightening. He had long since created a special technique to deal with enemies from my hammer technique. Now, you can actually learn the wild hammering skill in one move? Could it be that this was a true genius? In fact, Wang Feng was a little genius now. After all, his brain had been tempered. His perception and memory had all improved greatly. Even his entire body had formed a special constitution. Is there such a thing? Wang Feng said in an admiring tone. Then that friend of yours is indeed very powerful. I'm just imitating and learning, but he's able to create other techniques to deal with the enemy. Amazing. Tang San, why does his tone sound so weird? It seemed that the white-clothed Grim Reaper also acknowledged Big Brother Feng as a genius. Sure enough, geniuses appreciated each other. If there's a chance, I'll definitely meet him, Wang Feng said. At this time, the two of them also set off. As they walked towards the final surface, they communicated with each other. Tang San's face slightly darkened. He shook his head and said, if there's a chance, I'll introduce him to you. However, I feel that you should be a bit stronger than Big Brother Feng, because this is a complete set of the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. Especially the last move, 9-9-1, it is very difficult to learn. It's not something that can be performed just by learning the technique. Wang Feng had only used the technique to imitate and create reverse heaven and earth, but in reality, the difficulty was not high. It just depended on whether you had the knowledge and thought of creating it. As long as you thought of it, you could experiment. However, this complete set of the disorder-splitting wind hammer technique was not so easy to learn. As they chatted, the three of them finally reached the end of the path. At the end was a platform surrounded by a blood-red wilderness, and in front of them was an endless sea of blood. The magma-like blood rolled in it, flowing with a scorching aura. The temperature here was at least 150 degrees. Ordinary soul masters would find it difficult to survive here, let alone fight. Because the water on their body would directly evaporate, they could only use their soul power to resist, but this would consume their soul power very quickly. The air was also filled with the poison in the blood pool, which also needed to be isolated with soul power. That should be the exit. Tang Sen looked at the opposite side of the blood pool. It was about 200 meters high and slightly glowed. It was not difficult to go over. Tang San had the blue silvergrass, the flying divine claw, and the 8 spider spear. Although his soul power was very little now, he could still go over if he wanted to. Although the white-clothed killing god carried Hulaina on his back, it was also not difficult for him to go over. But could it be so easy? Just now it was the 9th wave. Now that they came down, they should encounter the last wave. The surroundings were very quiet, but it was so quiet that it was a little scary. It's here. Wang Feng stared at the entrance in front of him. Dong, dong, dong. The sound of footsteps could be heard from afar. But as he walked in, Tang San heard clearly that it wasn't just one set of footsteps, but 3. Could it be that we have to deal with 3 people? Tang San's heart pounded. This last wave of attacks, compared to the previous 9 waves, was not as exaggerated. On the contrary, it was very calm. It was terrifyingly calm. However, the calmer it was, the more terrifying Tang San felt. At this time, his and Hulaina's combat power had been reduced by too much. It could be said that it was not of much help to the battle. It could only provide a part of the support. Even with the 8 spider spears, Tang San's current soul power could not even last for 10 seconds. Sometimes, thinking about it, if there was no white-clothed killing god, just the environment at this time, the constantly rising murderous aura and surging blood aura would easily destroy their spirit and will. At this time, the footsteps finally stopped. The 3 figures also walked out from the exit. Seeing these 3 figures, Tang San's pupils suddenly shrank. Immediately, his eyes opened wide. Even Hulaina, who was on Wang Feng's back, opened her eyes wide at this time. Looking at the 3 figures in front of her, she felt extremely incredulous. Those were 3 pitch-black shadows. Their bodies were flowing with a faint blood-colored light, and they did not look very outstanding. But Tang San and Hulaina could easily distinguish them. One of them held a clear sky hammer, the other had a foxtail flickering behind him, and the person in the middle had 20 sharp blades floating around him. This is actually our shadows? Tang San was stunned. In the last wave, we actually have to fight our own shadows. It's not a shadow, it's a mirror image. Wang Feng shook his head and said, "It's a mirror image created by special means. I didn't expect the last wave to be a test like this." It had to be said that this last wave of test was also somewhat out of Wang Feng's expectations. Generally speaking, if the 3 of them could pass through the first 9 waves, it meant that the 3 of them were stronger than all the attacking soul beasts in the first 9 waves. In that case, their greatest enemy would be themselves. And now, Wang Feng and the other 2 were facing their own mirror images that might have the same strength. But the difference was now, only Wang Feng had the combat power. It was equivalent to Wang Feng was going to fight the 3 of them alone. Tang San almost blurted out, "This is impossible. P.S. Everyone, Happy New Year, O, intersection _ intersection O." Chapter 529. If it was under normal conditions, Tang San felt that they had a high chance of winning in a 3 versus 3 situation. After all, the other party was just a mirror image and not a real person. It might not have wisdom, but it could copy their strength. Even its strength might not be a complete copy. But now it was extremely difficult to deal with. And it appeared in the last wave. Not to mention the 3 of them. If it was anyone else, they would have consumed a lot of energy after passing the first 9 waves. And in this last wave, if they encountered their own mirror image, they would not be able to defeat it. People were the most difficult to defeat themselves. Wang Feng also watched attentively. Logically speaking, being able to create mirror images of the three of them was enough to prove that this Hell Road was not a simple place. Wang Feng recalled the city of massacre in his mind. He vaguely remembered that this place seemed to be a place of inheritance of a certain god. Wang Feng roughly knew that in the Douluo world, to become a god, one must pass down the position of a god. To become a god, one must pass the test of the inheritance left behind in the Douluo world by the gods of various levels. Wang Feng remembered that in the original work, Tang San inherited the positions of two great gods, the Azura god and the sea god. After passing the divine examination in special places, he obtained a recognition of the gods and passed down the position of gods. However, Wang Feng had no idea how he had obtained them. Now, this Hell Road might be similar to that kind of inheritance, but it was not complete. Otherwise, this divine examination would be too simple. And that kind of special divine examination required the strength of a titled Dalu to be qualified. This may not be a divine examination. It can only create mirror images of the strength of the three of us. This is obviously not a normal method, Wang Fengxin thought, but it seems that there is also a special soul beast that might be able to do it. Copying the strength of the three of them and forming mirror images, this was obviously not something that could be done by ordinary soul skills. But Wang Feng vaguely remembered that in the Douluo world, there seemed to be such a special soul beast. I wonder how strong this shadow mirror image is? At this time, Wang Feng suddenly thought, if the strength of these three mirror images is even our hidden strength, then it is definitely not something that a special soul beast can achieve. It can only be the power of a god. One must know that Wang Feng still had many hidden methods on the road. Tang San's 8 spider spear and blue silvergrass had not been used. If these shadow mirror images even had such a hidden ability, it would be too terrifying. Very soon, as the three figures walked out of the cave, they suddenly leaped down. Wang Feng saw with his own eyes that his own shadow controlled the sharp blades and formed a flight of stairs in the air. Hu Laina and Tang San shadows stepped on the sharp blades and jumped in the air, crossing the blood pool and landing on Wang Feng's side. These shadows are not simple. Wang Wu, they seem to be able to use your attacks. Tang San felt that it was extremely troublesome. Wang Feng, Wang Douluo of the Douluo, of the Douluo, of the two of the Douluo, of the Douluo, of the Douluo, Tang, Douluo. He even had some of Wang Feng's own style. To attack, Douluo of the Douluo of Douluo, to attack. As for Tang San's shadow, he was at the back, wielding the clear sky hammer and hammering the void. Wild hammering technique, Tang San said in surprise. These mirror images seem to have our abilities. Thump, 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 thump. The clear sky hammer in the hands of the mirror image Tang San did not seem to be real, but at this time, every time the hammer fell in the void, it shook out a stream of air, exactly the same as when Tang San used it before. There was no difference at all. The mirror images of Hu Laina and Wang Feng attacked Wang Feng himself. The head of the mirror image of Hu Laina glowed slightly, and the eyes of the body that was originally like a shadow suddenly emitted a red light, and pink mist quickly spread around. It was Hu Laina's charm ability. Even the soul bone, Tang San murmured, this is not an illusion, this is a real place. If a mirror image appeared in an illusion, even if the mirror image had its own strength, Tang San could completely understand it, because illusions were all fake. But if it was in reality, could a mirror image with the same strength be replicated? This Hell's Road was indeed a little powerful. It's not the same. At this time, Wang Feng suddenly said, they should only have part of their strength. In other words, these three shadows only have the ability that we showed in the previous 9 battles. If we had revealed more of our strength, they would have been stronger. Wang Feng instantly saw through it. Especially his own shadow, it was not strong. It only had the strength of first gear. Of course, it could also activate second gear because the opponent also had the mysterious underworld spike. And Hu Laina's charm ability was also much weaker. Obviously, the mirror image of Hu Laina's skull ability was much weaker than the real one behind him. When the opponent released the soul skill, Wang Feng could feel it clearly. After all, the soul bone in Hulaina's skull contained the consciousness of the stars, which inadvertently increased the power of the skull. The mirror image of Hulaina's skull obviously did not. In other words, it was impossible to replicate a real life. And the mirror image of Tang San used the wild hammering technique, although it was exactly the same as Tang San's. But there was also something missing, the concept. Wang Fengxian suddenly thought of a special cultivation technique in the wuxia novels in his previous life. Lesser, phaseless method. It could imitate other people's moves, and the power was very strong. But a fake was still a fake. The wild hammering technique used by the mirror image of Tang San was similar to this. It seemed to be imitated by the lesser phaseless method. It looked very similar, but in fact, it was very different, but the power should still be there. So on and so forth. Wang Feng felt that the mirror image of Hulaina and himself were the same. It seems to be. Tang San stared at his mirror image and also noticed some clues. If his mirror image had the 8 spider spears or the blue silvergrass, the first thing he would do now would be to use the ability of the blue silvergrass to control Hulaina instead of directly using the wild hammering technique. While heaving a sigh of relief, Tang San was secretly surprised by the white-clothed death god's observation. He did not expect the other party to be so calm at this time. This indirectly showed that the other party's state and strength had been maintained in a very stable state and was not affected at all. Be careful. After Wang Feng finished speaking, he rushed forward. Behind him, Hulaina let out a low groan and suddenly used both hands to tighten Wang Feng's shoulders. Wang Feng's current strength was actually less than half. He had consumed a lot of spiritual power and soul power. But against 3 fakes, Wang Feng was not afraid at all. End of this chapter. Chapter 530. Wang Feng took the lead and attacked Tang San in the distance. Wang Feng had used the disorder-splitting wind hammer technique before, so he was clear about it. Once the 81 hammer strikes came down, even if he could withstand it in his current state, he would have to expend a lot of energy. Wang Feng had no scruples because he was a shadow. The 10 sharp blades formed by the mysterious underworld spike attacked the mirror Tang San directly. The attack of the sharp blades might be scattered by the airflow around the mirror Tang San, but it was no wonder that it could interfere with the other party's operation. He only needed to attack at some key points to interrupt it easily. Wang Feng knew this very well. After using it just now, Wang Feng naturally knew how to interrupt this set of hammering techniques. However, just as the 10 sharp blades were about to attack the mirror Tang San, swoosh, 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 more than a dozen shadow blades suddenly twisted over, completely interrupting the trajectory of the 10 shadow blades. It was the mirror Wang Feng who saw through Wang Feng's thoughts. This made Wang Fengxian slightly surprised. Could it be that my own mirror image also has extremely high intelligence? Or could it only have its own thoughts? How could it react so quickly? The remaining 10 blades were aimed at the mirror image of Hulaina and himself. The mirror Hulaina directly used her tail to spread the sharp blades. Her foxtail soul bone was an external soul bone, so it also had extremely strong power. What surprised Wang Feng the most was that 2 of the sharp blades had already slashed and attacked Hulaina, but there was no effect. Damage immunity? In the distance, Tang San took a deep breath. He saw clearly. Although the 3 mirror images were strong, they were only replicating the strength that they had shown. Although they were strong, Tang San also saw that the white-clothed Grim Reaper might have a chance. He never thought that these mirror images' abilities were not limited to this. How could he fight them? There was no chance at all. His heart gradually became more anxious. I can still use the purple divine light, but once I use it, I will have no soul power in my body. The purple divine light should be effective against these 3 mirror images, right? Although Wang Wu can resist the 3 mirror images now, he can't cause any real damage to them. If this continues, Tang San looked at the battle situation. It had to be said that the white-clothed Grim Reaper Wang Wu was ridiculously strong. At this moment, He was fighting 3 mirror images alone, but he was not at a disadvantage at all. His mirror image's strength was quite different from his own. Wang Wu himself had 1 sharp blade, but the mirror image had to use at least 2 sharp blades to block it. The mirror image's physical fitness was also much worse. With a single punch, the pitch-black mirror image was directly sent flying. Hulaina's charm ability did not have any effect on him, but it was difficult to deal. That was because her external soul bone was very strong. There were basically no weak external soul bones. Whether it was Wang Feng's mysterious underworld armor or Tang San's 8 spider spear, they were both ridiculously strong. Especially the spikes on the foxtail, they seemed to be able to be used as hidden weapons. When he brandished it, his strength was also extremely great. Hulaina's physical fitness was not much worse than Tang San's. Another punch sent Hulaina's steel-like foxtail flying. Wang Feng frowned slightly. These 3 mirror images were not affected by physical attacks. Their bodies were half virtual and half real. Wang Feng's mirror image also had the Xian Ming spike, which meant that it could also activate second gear. Together with Hulaina, it was very strong. Wang Feng was not in his best condition, so he could not kill these 3 mirror images. Although it was difficult to hurt him, it was not a solution to keep fighting. Especially his own mirror image, which was very difficult to deal with. It seemed to be able to see through his thoughts, which meant that the mirror image's thought process was very likely the same as his. That was the most troublesome point. His mirror image seemed to be able to detect many of Wang Feng's attacks and thoughts, and was able to warn him in advance. It must be known that other than Wang Feng's own strength, his various ingenious ways of attacking were also very important. For example, just now, Wang Feng pretended to retreat to a place not far away from the blood pool and send Hulaina flying with a punch. Then, he wanted to use the sharp blade to send Hulaina flying into the blood pool. He wanted to see if the hot lava in the blood pool could destroy these mirror images. However, his mirror image seemed to be able to sense something in advance. It flew into the air and caught Hulaina, who was about to fall into the blood pool. Otherwise, the mirror image of Hulaina would have fallen into the pool of blood. This was the first time Wang Feng felt that he was so troublesome. If he had all his strength, Wang Feng would not be afraid. More importantly, this mirror image had some of its own fighting methods. That was very troublesome. Why am I so difficult to deal with? Wang Feng could not help but think to himself. Also, he could not interrupt the wild hammering technique that Tang San was using. After a few exchanges, Tang San had already used 60 hammering techniques. The terrifying airflow was wreaking havoc around the mirror image of Tang San. Violent energy poured out. At this time, Hulaina, who was behind Wang Feng, moaned softly and breathed in Wang Feng's ear. My external soul bone has a flaw. It should allow you to defeat her immediately. Wang Feng was stunned when he heard this. Flaw? How could an external soul bone have a flaw? Generally speaking, unless there was a problem during the fusion with the Soul Master, the Soul Beast would have inherited the soul bone's inherent flaws. However, Hulaina was willing to say it out loud. After all, if she said it out loud, he would know her flaw in the future. Wang Feng was silent for a moment. He did not ask. Yes. Hulaina's palm tightened a little. Her voice trembled. It's 3 inches below my foxtail at the end of my spine. If you attack that place, my external soul bone will shrink and lose its effect temporarily. My body will also enter a state of stiffness and numbness. She seemed to have used a lot of courage to say it. After she finished speaking, she lowered her head. Wang Feng thought for a moment. That place seemed to be a little sensitive. It was at the buttocks. It was very difficult to think of. However, Wang Feng did not care so much at a time like this. His mirror images were more difficult to deal with than Wang Feng had imagined. If he could get rid of one, it would be one. He only hoped that these mirror images had inherited Hulaina's flaw. Wang Feng continued to attack Hulaina. With his strong physique, he quickly attacked the place that Hulaina had pointed out. To be precise, Wang Feng only touched it lightly. The mirror image of Hulaina's body suddenly stiffened. The foxtail, soul bone, quickly shrank and returned to her body. Wang Fengxian was shocked. The flaw was real. His attack was very strange. Even Tang San, who was far away, did not see any clues. He only thought that the white-robed Grim Reaper used some special technique to make the external soul bone of Hu Laina disappear. End of chapter. Chapter 531. Get down. Naturally, Wang Feng would not miss such an opportunity. He kicked the mirror image of Hu Laina and sent it flying into the blood pool far away. Just as Wang Feng had expected, these reflections weren't affected by physical attacks, but they would be attacked by the blood pool. The blood pool contained terrifying toxins and high temperatures. There was also a violent energy inside. Ordinary soul masters would have to rest after a few seconds. After Hu Laina was kicked down by Wang Feng, her body melted at a visible speed. Wang Feng was much more relaxed after dealing with the reflection. However, Wang Feng didn't expect Hu Laina to reveal her secret. Such a weakness would be the Achilles heel of a martial artist. They wouldn't tell anyone about it. Hu Laina had been dealt with, but he was the most difficult one to deal with. He was in second gear. Even if he only used the mysterious underworld spike, he was still ridiculously strong. In addition, his reflection's fighting style was similar to his. I can only crush her. Wang Feng knew that he didn't have any weaknesses. If he wanted to defeat himself, he had to crush him with his own strength. There was no other way. However, if he didn't use the 5 forms of the Green Lotus, Pangu's Axe, or the Dark Angel, what else could he do to increase his strength? His reflection in second gear was extraordinarily strong. His opponent's body wasn't tempered by the karmic fire of the Red Lotus like his real body. It was just an illusion. However, its strength was real. Furthermore, it had a replica soul bone. The 100,000-year torso bone and the mysterious underworld armor brought about significant improvements. Wang Feng's physical strength was close to that of a rank 80 soul master when he was in first gear. When he was in second gear, his physical strength was close to that of a rank 90 soul master. If he wanted to crush himself in second gear, it would be easy if he used soul skills. However, he couldn't use soul skills now. Right at this moment, the chest of the mirror image Wang Feng glowed faintly, and an icy, profound light suddenly shot out from its head. Wang Feng frowned when he saw this. Without hesitation, his torso shone as well. A streak of icy light shot out from his abdomen. It was Spirit Seal. As the two clashed, Wang Feng, who possessed a genuine 100,000-year-old torso bone, naturally had the upper hand. The icy-colored mystic light that he unleashed drowned out Wang Feng's Spirit Seal soul technique and attacked the mirror image. However, mirror image Wang Feng had already anticipated this. He immediately dodged, and the icy mystic light directly bombarded the distant blood pool. It actually directly shook open a bridge of ice. The strength of the Spirit Seal soul technique was directly proportional to its consumption. If a normal rank 50 soul master were to use a soul skill from a 100,000-year soul bone, he would probably be able to use it once or twice without making a mistake. Furthermore, it was extremely fast and had a lock-on effect, making it very difficult to dodge. It was clear that Wang Feng's doppelganger possessed Wang Feng's own battle mentality. It was used to deplete Wang Feng's soul force and buy time for his doppelganger Tang San to use his wild wind hammer. Do you really think I don't have a way? Wang Fengxian was shocked. It seemed that he was still very strong. Since that was the case, there was no other way. Wang Feng stood where he was, and the 6 bloodlines hidden under his clothes slowly lit up. This time, he didn't release his domain. Mirror image Wang Feng also had a domain. Wang Feng had frequently used it in battle. Releasing it was ineffective against it. However, after cultivating for more than 2 years, the Dark Angel Martial Soul didn't just have an additional domain. If it only had an additional domain, the Dark Angel Martial Soul wouldn't be able to compare to any of the forms of the Green Lotus. At this moment, as the 6 bloodlines flowed with a strange energy, they slowly lit up in Wang Feng's body. In a split second, different streams of air suddenly gathered around Wang Feng's body, and a powerful aura rose from Wang Feng's figure. These 6 bloodlines were slowly activated during the 2 years of cultivation. They didn't just produce a domain. Terrifying energy was hidden in each bloodline. Furthermore, they were constantly increasing and hadn't reached saturation yet. This was also why Wang Feng was able to absorb the killing intent from the 2 of them, as well as their fiendish aura and various negative emotions. Therefore, these 6 bloodlines contained terrifying energy. Once they were activated, Wang Feng's body would enter an extremely strong state. Each bloodline gave him a huge amplification effect. It was about 1.5 times stronger. However, when Wang Feng used these blood tattoos, his mind and soul would be constantly attacked by 6 different emotions at all times. Under such an impact, it was easy to become a lunatic. Ordinary soul masters, even Tang San, wouldn't be able to withstand such an impact. Even titled Douluo wouldn't be able to. This had nothing to do with one's willpower. It was only related to one's spiritual soul. If Wang Feng hadn't used the red lotus karmic fire to temper his body, his soul wouldn't have been able to withstand such an impact. However, if he hadn't tempered his brain and soul, Wang Feng wouldn't have been able to cultivate his dark angel martial soul. Wang Feng's spiritual power was greatly depleted now. He couldn't maintain this state for long. It could only last for about 10 seconds. Wang Feng hadn't used this state before. As he was a little worried, he didn't have the chance. Now that he tried it, Wang Feng felt as if his spiritual soul was about to explode. This impact was completely different from the original Sin's domain. It was much stronger. Furthermore, the original Sin's domain wasn't complete. However, each of these 6 blood veins existed independently and were complete. In other words, the current original Sin's domain was just the aura of the 6 bloodlines. The power of the 6 bloodlines was the source of the dark angel martial soul. Wang Feng had cultivated in the capital of massacre for more than 2 years, absorbing countless negative emotions and various chaotic auras. Right now, Wang Feng was releasing this power directly from his body. It wasn't hard to imagine how much impact Wang Feng's spiritual soul had to endure. However, everything was difficult at the beginning. Wang Feng hadn't used this move of the dark angel martial soul before. Now that he had the chance, Wang Feng had to give it a try. At this moment, Wang Feng's aura revolved around him. It was as if 6 huge dragons were flying around him. Majestic power surged from the 6 bloodlines into his body. On his back, Hulaina's eyes suddenly became sober. She only felt that the white-clothed death's warm, spacious, and comfortable back suddenly became extremely cold. At this moment, Hulaina's muddled consciousness was even more sober. She was a little confused as she looked at Wang Feng in shock. She didn't know what was going on. So cold. Hulaina's teeth were chattering. It wasn't the coldness of his body, but the coldness of his spiritual soul. But at the same time, that powerful aura also shocked Hulaina. She was lying on the back of the white-clothed death god. She could clearly feel that the strength and aura of the white-clothed death god had increased by several times. And it was still increasing. This was Wang Feng adapting to the huge energy of the 6 bloodlines. Tang San, who was watching from afar, was also incomparably shocked. In the next moment, before the 2 of them had a chance to react, Wang Feng moved. End of this chapter. Chapter 532. Hulaina, who was behind Wang Feng, only felt that the scenery around her seemed to be in an illusory space. It was too fast. It was so fast that she didn't even have the chance to react, and she couldn't even make a sound. It was as if even her 5 senses were gone. Boom! The moment she regained her consciousness, she saw a black shadow being directly blasted far away. It was Wang Feng's mirror image. In the few seconds when Hulaina lost consciousness, Wang Feng defeated his own image in an instant. It was too fast. It was much more powerful than the addition of the deification soul skill. But the side effects were too great. Taking advantage of the moment when the 6 blood traces were activated, Wang Feng quickly attacked the mirror image Tang, San, who was still waving the wild hammering technique. Be careful. At this time, Tang San suddenly roared from behind. Immediately, the skull on his head bloomed again, and the purple light blasted toward the mirror image Tang San in the distance. It was precisely because the mirror image Tang San's wild hammering technique had been completed at this time. Clang! The void trembled nonstop. The hammering technique formed by 9 and 1, who knew how powerful the enemy could be killed by it. A black dragon rose from the mirror image Tang San. Tang San's purple divine light was a spiritual attack. It penetrated the opponent in one blow, but it didn't weaken the momentum of this move. The purple divine light blasted in the distance and suddenly exploded. However, the black dragon was still charging towards Wang Feng. In comparison, the power of the wild hammering technique used by the mirror image Tang San didn't seem to be much weaker than Tang San's. Oh no! In the distance, Tang San felt a chill in his heart. Just now, the white-clothed death god suddenly burst out his strength and defeated his own mirror image. But that kind of burst must have consumed a lot of energy and burden on the body. If he took this last move at this time, he was afraid that he would suffer a fatal injury. Wang Feng snorted coldly and looked at the giant dragon. First, he threw Hulaina behind him. He didn't have any pity for her and directly threw her into the open space in the distance. Before the battle, he wanted to throw her down just now, but thinking that Hulaina didn't have any fighting ability, she couldn't even do the basic dodging. At least Tang San still had some strength left. If Hulaina were to be attacked, then she would probably die. Now that there was only one mirror image left, there was naturally no need to carry it. Hulaina, who had been thrown to the ground, also felt the whistling of the wind. She barely managed to recover some of her strength. Using her hands to support herself, she gently landed on the ground. Her misty and watery eyes stared intently at Wang Feng. At this moment, she did not feel any dissatisfaction at the other party's rudeness. Instead, she was extremely worried. Because Hulaina knew that the other party had thrown her out to prevent her from getting hurt. She had also witnessed the might of Tang Yin's hammer technique earlier. After throwing Hulaina away, Wang Feng did not feel relaxed at all. He leaped up with both feet and condensed energy into his right fist. His soul power surged like the sea as he gathered all the strength in his body. A condensed aura surrounded Wang Feng's right fist. Facing the black dragon, Wang Feng directly punched out. Rumble. In an instant, the black dragon seemed to have been painted. It was instantly turned into a blank space by the terrifying aura of this punch. The violent airflow swept through the surrounding space, causing the blood pool below to churn and roll, setting off monstrous waves of blood. This terrifying punch not only pierced through and destroyed the black dragon, it even blasted a huge hole in the opposite wall. The momentum was incomparably great. Wang Feng fell from midair. Many holes were burned in his white clothes by the splashing blood droplets from the blood pool. However, the terrifying airflow brought about by this punch seemed to have reduced the temperature of this place by a lot. The mirror image of Tang San was directly blown away and then drowned by the monstrous waves of blood. At this point, all three mirror images had been destroyed. He can actually resist the wild splitting wind hammer techniques 9-9-1. Tang San was completely stunned. He was very clear about the power of the wild splitting wind hammer technique. With the strength he had displayed just now, he would have been able to kill the 10-headed sun serpent in one move. He didn't know how many levels he had surpassed. Although the mirror image didn't have the 8-spider spear or the blue silver grass, and even if he was stronger than the mirror image in all aspects, the power of the last hammer strike would not be inferior, because the mirror image of Tang San was in perfect condition. No, he should have broken the wild splitting wind hammer techniques 9-9-1 with pure strength. Tang San seemed to have thought of something and couldn't help but murmur. Just now, it wasn't the white-clothed Grim Reaper that received it at all. It was him who directly used his own strength to break that move. In other words, The power of that punch surpassed the wild splitting wind hammer technique performed by the mirror image of Tang San. Receiving and breaking through were two completely different concepts. What kind of terrifying strength was this? The wild splitting wind hammer technique was still very strong, especially the last hammer strike of 99-1, which was superimposed with the power of 81 hammers. It could be said to be terrifying. Wang Feng's normal second gear strength could receive Tang San's 99-1 with no problem. Even if it was first gear, he could receive it. But if he wanted to break it, it would be impossible. However, Wang Feng's current state was not second gear. After the power of the 6 blood patterns fused, his current pure physical strength was comparable to the strength of the deified soul skill plus soul-devouring Bloodwing's soul skill. It should be at least a 10-fold increase. This was a very terrifying increase. In fact, Wang Feng had underestimated the increase contained in the 6 blood patterns. After landing on the ground, Wang Feng's face was pale, and the killing intent in his eyes was boiling. After a while, he slowly calmed down. His spirit felt a little empty. The spiritual exhaustion was because after the blood patterns were activated, the impact of 6 different emotions was too exaggerated. Although the activation of the blood patterns is strong, the negative effects are not small. Although my soul is very pure, the strength of my spiritual power is still not enough. Wang Feng sighed. In fact, in comparison, the strength of his spiritual power was not inferior to that of a titled Dalu, but a titled Dalu couldn't withstand the impact of these 6 emotions, because no titled Dalu's soul could compare to Wang Feng's. This was because such an impact would not only deplete one's spiritual power, but also have a huge impact on a soul master's soul. It was just that Wang Feng's spiritual power was not enough to use the power of the blood patterns. The depletion was huge, and he couldn't sustain it for long. Compared to the enhancement from the deified soul skill and soul-devouring Bloodwings, the weakness was very obvious. It could be used as an outburst, but over a long period of time, his spiritual power might not be able to sustain it before the enemy died. This was the first time Wang Feng used the power of the blood patterns, so he had many more calculations. He also had another trump card. 6 blood patterns, original sin domain. This was the result of Wang Feng's cultivation in the capital of Massacre for more than 2 years, and it had huge potential. It also allowed Wang Feng to unleash extremely strong fighting strength, even if he couldn't use soul skills. If he met special enemies who could seal other people's soul skills in the future, it would naturally come in handy. It also allowed Wang Feng's strength to not only rely on soul skills. End of chapter. Chapter 533. Wang Feng stood where he was, gasping for breath and recovering quickly. The violent energy of heaven and earth around him was quickly absorbed into Wang Feng's body and transformed into pure soul power through the refinement of a meteoric tear. Tang San and Hulaina did not speak and waited quietly. After a while, Wang Feng walked back to the two of them. "How are you?" Wang Feng came over and asked. The violent airflow just now caused a lot of turbulence around, splashing a lot of blood and magma. It was easy to get injured. Fortunately, Hulaina was thrown a little far away by Wang Feng. Tang San had already dodged. Fortunately, are you okay? Tang San shook his head and couldn't help but ask, "Are you hurt?" That was a genuine 9-9 return to 1 move. Wang Feng sighed and said, "I'm still a little injured." Hearing this, Tang San breathed a sigh of relief and thought, "If you're really not injured, I really can't understand. Is it an internal injury?" Tang San hurriedly asked, "Is the injury serious?" Just now, he used a punch to break the 9-1. Although it was very powerful and successful, he should have also been shocked by the power of the hammer. However, it might be that his internal organs were injured, so it couldn't be seen from the outside. But then, he heard the white-clothed Grim Reaper continue to say, "My elbow is a little dislocated. I used too much force just now." With that, Wang Feng pressed the elbow of his right hand with his left hand and gently lifted it. With a crack, it was fine. Then Wang Feng waved his right hand and nodded slightly. Okay, it's recovered. Tang San, was it just dislocated because he used too much force? If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. Tang San stared at the white-clothed Grim Reaper for a few seconds and didn't speak. He really couldn't feel any injury. Of course, it was also possible that the other party hit it well and was still wary of them. This was normal, and Tang San didn't intend to ask more. Wang Feng walked to Hulaina again and looked at her, who was a little confused. I'm fine. Hulaina felt as if she was in a sauna. Her body was constantly emitting hot steam. It was obvious that she was a little delirious from the environment here when she left Wang Feng. Wang Feng helped Hulaina absorb the killing intent and murderous aura in his body again. Then, he carried Hulaina and Tang San to the entrance of the cave on the platform. This time, because Wang Feng was proficient in controlling it, he could even make Tang San step on the sharp blade and fly into the air. In addition, Tang San had the Flying God Claw, so he could walk up easily. Tang San didn't even use his blue silver grass. On the other side of the cave, there was a gentle breeze blowing down, making one feel relaxed and happy. Tang San felt that he would never forget this part of Hell Road for the rest of his life. Life was too difficult. Looking at the boiling blood pool below, Tang San recalled the scenes of the past 2 years. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. What are you waiting for? Wang Feng looked at Tang San and asked in confusion. This evil place should be redeemed. Tang San took a deep breath, and his tone became a little cold. Then, he took out a special herb from his 100 treasures pouch. Seeing this, Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. This herb was called Snow Swan's Kiss. It was a special immortal herb in the Ice-Fire Yin-Yang Eye. In terms of the herb itself, it was not poisonous, but it could activate the poison thousands of times and amplify the effect of the poison. The snow-white, immortal herb seemed a little out of place in this bloody purgatory. Tang San held the Snow Swan's Kiss with his jade hand and trembled a little. There are more or less toxins in the body of any soul master. Just like the humans in my previous life, they looked very healthy, but in fact, they had countless hidden toxins. It's just that they weren't fatal. If I breathe in this Snow Swan's Kiss, I'm afraid I'll be poisoned to death. Wang Feng thought to himself. Even the current soul masters are no exception. Of course, I'm an exception. His body was spotless and incomparably pure. Any subtle poison that entered his body would be instantly purified. It was the same even if it was food. Although Wang Feng could stay away from food for a long time, as a food lover and an outstanding descendant of China, he still had to eat. This blood pool was the energy source of the Massacre City's domain. If the Snow Swan's Kiss was thrown in, everyone in the City of Massacre would be poisoned to death. One had to know that the people in the City of Massacre had countless times more toxins in their bodies than ordinary soul masters. After all, those people drank Bloody Mary all year round and had accumulated countless toxins in their bodies. Wang Feng did not stop him and watched as Tang San threw the Snow Swan's Kiss in. Then, he turned around and climbed towards the entrance of the cave with Wang Feng. The entrance of the cave went straight up. After climbing for a while, the two of them could faintly see a white light. It was a light that was similar to a barrier. When Wang Feng's body passed through the barrier, he finally heard a familiar voice in his mind. Congratulations, host, for successfully obtaining a card. You have obtained the first half of the secret Qian of the 9 secrets. You have a 90,000-year soul ring. You have obtained an additional reward, a 20,000-year soul ring age increase. The next time you check in is at the center of the Great Star Douluo Forest 1 year later. There are no additional requirements for additional rewards. Hearing this voice, Wang Feng was slightly stunned. Secret 9? Could it be the heaven-shrouding 9 secrets? Wang Feng's mind was filled with thoughts. As a small otaku in his previous life, he had read a lot. He also knew about the heaven-shrouding 9 secrets. The heaven-shrouding 9 secrets was created by the 9 heavenly lords in the ancient era. It was a most suitable secret technique for humans to cultivate. It was originally 1, but because it was too heaven-defying, it was not tolerated by the Great Tao. Then it was split into 9. It seemed that 2 of them were lost. Heaven's shrouding 9 secrets had only read the majority of it. Disregarding the other 8 secrets, the Heaven shrouding 9 secrets was a secret technique that cultivated one's divine sense and condensed one's primordial spirit. When cultivated to the extreme, it was said that one could predict the future. Wang Feng did not care if he could predict the future or not, but to be able to cultivate one's divine sense and condense one's primordial spirit, wasn't that what he wanted? Although the rules of the world were different, divine sense itself was spiritual energy, and the primordial spirit was the soul. It was just that the words were different. The Heaven shrouding 9 secrets was quite suitable for him now, but it was only half of it. But it was enough. Such a heaven-defying secret technique. Half of it was enough for Wang Feng to cultivate. Thinking about it, Wang Feng was suddenly curious. Until now, he didn't seem to have cultivated any kind of secret technique or cultivation formula, because the Douluo world did not have such things. Tang Xin did, but it would not be spread. Unless Wang Feng created it himself, it was impossible to create these secret techniques in a short time. It also required a variety of understanding of the forms of all things in the world, to understand the world, to experience the world, and to experience the different wonders of life. Wang Feng felt that he might be able to create an XX secret technique. After all, his current body was not an ordinary body, but it would take too much time. Now that he had this half of the Heaven shrouding 9 secrets, Wang Feng was a little curious. With his body and soul tempered by the Red Lotus Hellfire, would it feel like flying when he cultivated these secret techniques? P.S. There might not be any tonight in a chapter. Chapter 534. Half of the front secret word was related to the cultivation of the soul and mind. For the current Wang Feng, it was what he needed the most. However, Wang Feng was not in a hurry. He only had half of this secret technique and might not be able to comprehend it. If he could not comprehend it, he would not be able to cultivate it no matter how special his soul and mind were. What he needed to do now was to walk out of this hell road. After passing through the white fog, Wang Feng felt that the world in front of him had turned into a white color. Bulaina behind him had also disappeared. It was as if he had entered another mysterious space. The coldness formed from killing intent wrapped around him like a tide. Cold and lonely. It was an endless killing intent. It was a killing intent that could slaughter all living things. It was a killing intent that could kill all gods and Buddhas. The killing intent followed Wang Feng's body and entered his brain, causing his heart to turn cold. Wang Fengxin was shocked. Could this be the massacre god domain of the capital of massacre? Was this the reward of the Hell Road? However, this domain was too terrifying and too strong. There was only one possibility. It was a massacre god domain left behind by a true god-level expert. At this moment, King's body suddenly emitted a pitch-black light and began to resist the massacre god domain. In this world of white light, the black light on Wang Feng's body was extremely special. It was Wang Feng's original sin domain. The moment the original sin domain appeared, the terrifying massacre god domain was like a calm sea that had been set off by a tsunami. It surged towards Wang Feng. Wang Feng groaned as he felt his consciousness tumbling. He vaguely understood something. The original sin domain was isolating the massacre god domain. However, his original sin domain was not strong enough. In the white massacre god domain, it was like a piece of duckweed, swaying in the wind as if it would be torn to pieces at any time. The reward of the Hell Road is a talent massacre god domain. However, it seems to conflict with the original sin domain. Wang Feng's mind was in a mess under this impact. He did not understand. How could there be a conflict between talent domains? Or could it be that the original sin domain was too high level and did not allow a lower level domain to appear? Thinking about it carefully, the original sin domain contained 6 types of origin energy. These 6 types might not be of a higher level than a massacre god domain, but they were emotions that all living things had. Fusing them into a domain was naturally not ordinary. Is it trying to assimilate this massacre domain or even absorb it? At this moment, the original Sin's domain seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. 6 auras surged out from the 6 blood patterns and surrounded Wang Feng's body. The black light would shrink and expand at times, but it did not disappear in this white world. Just like that, Wang Feng subconsciously resisted. After an unknown period of time, he suddenly felt a warm feeling, and his consciousness suddenly woke up. After slowly opening his eyes, Wang Fengzheng saw that both Tang San and Hu Lina were looking at him. All around them was open space. It didn't seem like they were in the city of massacre. The two of them were already dressed neatly, but their temperaments had changed slightly. Thinking about it, it should be because he had obtained the killing god domain. You're awake. Hulaina's beautiful eyes seemed to reflect a person's figure. Looking at Wang Feng, her snow-white face suddenly became a bit rosy. Hunan, I woke up just now. Tang Xin stared at Wang Feng. His light blue eyes flashed with a bright light from time to time. His temperament was a bit cold and gloomy. Obviously, it was affected by the killing intent. After more than 2 years of killing, it was difficult for him to change in a short time. In contrast, Hulaina was much better. Maybe it was because the killing intent on her body was much less than Tang San's. At this time, it gave people a fresh and comfortable feeling. In fact, because Hulaina was carried by Wang Feng in the last few waves of attacks, she was infected by Wang Feng's aura. Therefore, she suffered the least impact and influence in this hell road. Wang Wu, have you also obtained the killing god domain? Huna asked softly. Wang Feng was silent for a long time. He did not obtain the killing god domain. In other words, the killing god domain and the original Sin's domain had merged. The 7th blood pattern lit up slightly and seemed to have been activated, but it was very faint. However, just before he woke up, where did that warm feeling come from? Wang was a little confused. He looked at Hulaina and thought, could it be him? Although Wang Feng was wearing a mask and his eyes were not exposed, Hulaina seemed to feel that this Wang Wu was looking at her, which made her gaze a little erratic. Wang Feng did not answer Hulaina's question. He just said, it's time to part ways. Wang Feng did not care much about the killing god domain, because it was impossible to be stronger than the original Sin's domain. On the contrary, it was much weaker. The impact of the original Sin's domain was an impact on the soul and consciousness of any living being. As long as one was in the original Sin's domain, it would be weakened by a lot. After absorbing the killing god domain, the 7th blood pattern lit up, which meant that the original Sin's domain would become complete and even stronger. So soon, Hulaina was stunned and walked a few steps closer. She wanted to say something, but she did not know how to say it. This person was one of the only 2 people who knew the secret of the shortcomings of her external soul bone. The other was naturally her teacher, Bibi Dawn. At this time, Hulaina had some subtle emotions in her heart. She did not want to leave just like that. There was reluctance, expectation, gentleness, and some complicated feelings in her eyes. Wang Wu, strictly speaking, without you, we might not have been able to walk out of the hell road. Tang San also said in a deep voice, I will remember this kindness. After waking up, Tang San recalled the hell road and felt that every step was frightening. It was almost impossible for a person to pass through it alone. He really did not know how those killing gods who had passed through the hell road in the past managed to pass through it. This time, if it was not for Nicholas Wang Wu, he was afraid that no need. Wang Feng waved his hand and shook his head. If I'm not wrong, this hell road's attack wave is based on the number of people who pass through it. The more people there are, the more difficult it will be. If it's only 1 or 2 of you, the difficulty will naturally be much lower. It was very normal, just like those dungeons in online games. The more people there were, the more difficult it would be to adjust the balance. Even without him, these 2 people might be able to pass through it. Hearing this, Tang San was slightly stunned. He did not think of this point. Wang Wu, can you take off your mask? At this time, Hulaina suddenly asked, before we leave, I want to take a look at your appearance? When Wang Feng heard this, he thought to himself, When my consciousness was immersed in the killing god domain just now, didn't you take the opportunity to take a look? Tang San was slightly stunned and looked straight at Wang Feng. Could he be Brother Feng? This thought appeared in Tang San's mind again. Along the way, he had this thought many times. But every time, Tang San felt that it was impossible. How could Brother Feng come here and go through the Hell Road with him? This was simply a fantasy and a chapter. Chapter 535. Moreover, his ability was different from Brother Feng's. However, after careful observation, Tang San found that this Wang Wu and Brother Feng were somewhat similar. They were both very strong and very talented. Their battle thinking was also very unexpected. But that was the only similarity. What's there to see? Wang Feng shook his head. He had never revealed his identity, not only to show off, but also because Ulaina was a disciple of Bibi Dawn. At that time, the Pope was also present. If they knew of his existence, they might go back and tell Bibi Dawn. What should he do? Of course, Wang Feng could feel that Ulaina might have a good impression of him. But what was the use of this good impression? Could it be compared to her feelings of being nurtured by Bibi Dawn in the Martial Spirit Palace for so long? Wang Feng would not do such a stupid thing. So, in the past few years in the Massacre City, Wang Feng did not show the ability he used in the Pope's Palace. Cultivating the Dark Angel martial soul was also done in secret. The power of the blood mark and the original Sin domain were all cultivated. She would not know it all. Wang Feng did not even change the shape of the mysterious underworld spike. He only used it to kill people. In fact, Wang Feng was not afraid of his face. This was because Wang Feng's current appearance was very different from 4 years ago. He was currently dressed up because he was afraid of revealing his face. Because his appearance was too shocking, it would cause a commotion. What if Ulaina accidentally fell in love with him? Wang Fengxin thought. Ulaina sighed softly. She had already told him about such a private flaw. Was he really unable to satisfy such a small request? What a heartless man. Wang Feng seemed to have seen through Ulaina's thoughts. He walked over and said indifferently, I know how to cure that flaw of yours. Hearing this, Ulaina was stunned. Her external attachment soul bone was a shortcoming because her body wasn't strong enough during the fusion process. Moreover, because this flaw was too private, Ulaina did not tell anyone else, only Bibi Dawn. However, Bibi Dawn didn't know how to solve this problem. After all, she wasn't the kind of person who specialized in researching soul bones. Soul bones were too rare, and there were very few people in the entire continent who had external soul bones. It was impossible to research them, and they were one of a kind. Therefore, no one knew what the flaw was. You know? Ulaina asked in a low voice, her beautiful eyes shining. Although this kind of Achilles heel was very hidden, once it was discovered in battle, it would be very fatal. It was easy for problems to arise. Ulaina was very clear about this. Of course, Wang Feng suddenly whispered something in Ulaina's ear. With that, he turned around and left. Gentlemen, we'll meet again if fate wills it. Wang Feng quickly disappeared from where he stood. Ulaina, on the other hand, stood rooted to the ground. Her face was so red that it seemed like it could drip blood. Her eyes were filled with anger and joy as she looked at the back of that figure. Nonsense! How can this kind of method be cured? Ulaina bit her lips and mumbled shyly. Then, she looked deeply at Tang San and said, Tang Yin, we'll meet again. After saying that, Ulaina also quickly left the place. However, the blush on her cheeks did not disappear. Tang San looked at the two of them and felt a little strange. He didn't know what that Wang Wu said to Ulaina. After a while, Tang San silently recalled the experiences of the past 2 years and slowly left this seemingly empty area, until a low voice sounded, Little San. Tang San's body trembled. He looked ahead and saw that his father was already standing on the road in front of him. Tang Hao turned around and looked at Tang San. His face, which was already weathered, seemed to have aged a few years, and there were many more wrinkles. Father, is this the reason why you want me to come here to cultivate? Tang San took a deep breath, suppressed the excitement in his heart, and asked. After not seeing his father for more than 2 years, Tang Xin was already over 18 years old. At this time, seeing his father's appearance again, he had a different feeling in his heart. That's right, Tang Hao said slowly in a slightly hoarse voice. The God-Slayer realm that you have now is more basic. It will allow you to form a kind of chi field. In this kind of chi field, you can weaken the enemy's strength by 10%, and your own strength will increase by 10%. As you cultivate this chi field, and chi field will form the true God-Slayer realm. When that time comes, it will be very useful. It will definitely not be inferior to the blue-silver realm that you've awakened. Tang Xin nodded. The father and son chatted for a while. Father, I met a very mysterious person in the City of Massacre. That person should be the person who entered the City of Massacre before us 2 years ago. Just now, he was the one who went through Hell Road with me. That person is called Nicholas Wang Wu. Father, have you heard of him? I feel that this person is very strong. He's at least as strong as a soul, Douluo. Tang Xin hesitated for a while and asked, his ability is also very strange. He also has a mysterious talent field. I think that he should be one of the more famous people on the continent. Tang Hao was silent when he heard that. In fact, in the past 2 years, he had been secretly observing Tang San. However, because the Hell Road was too special, he did not know much about it. Naturally, he knew about the white-robed god of massacre, Wang Wu. Even though Tang Hao had roamed the continent for many years, he did not know of such a person. What surprised Tang Hao the most was that even he could not sense the white-robed god of massacre, Wang Wu. It was as if he was blocked by a special aura, making it difficult for others to sense him unless he used his martial soul and soul power. However, that would be too obvious, and he would expose himself. Looks like Father doesn't know either. Tang San thought to himself, Father shouldn't have heard of this white-robed god of massacre, Wang Wu. Let's not talk about that person for now, Tang Hao said in a deep voice. In the past 2 years, I secretly went to the pontiff's palace and roughly learned some news about Lin Feng. He took the time to go there. News about Lin Feng? Tang Xin was stunned at first. He hurriedly asked, where is he now? Tang Hao shook his head and said, more than 4 years ago, after I left with you, Lin Feng seemed to have escaped from the Hall of Martial Spirits. Hearing this, Tang Xin suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that Lin Feng was really not dead. However, after he escaped, he was hunted down. Tang Hao's next sentence made Tang San's heart skip a beat. This person is very powerful. He can be said to be the strongest titled Douluo in the Hall of Martial Spirits. The strongest titled Douluo? Tang San was stunned. Even his father's tone was so solemn. One could imagine how powerful this titled Douluo was. But in the past 4 years, the Hall of Martial Spirits did not send anyone to capture Lin Feng. This means that there are only 2 possibilities. Either Lin Feng is in the Hall of Martial Spirits, or he is dead. Otherwise, the Hall of Martial Spirits would not have done nothing. Tang Hao fell silent after saying that. He had spent a lot of effort to find out this news. Hearing this news, Tang Xin suddenly clenched his fists. No matter which of these 2 possibilities it was unacceptable. However, Tang Xin hoped that it was the first possibility. At least Lin Feng was still alive. End of chapter. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.